Chapter 1141. If they didn't solve the problem of the will of heaven and earth in the blood-refining realm, no matter how many cultivators there were, they wouldn't be able to provide effective support to the Jade Blood Holy Land. The situation suddenly became awkward. Lu Yi interrupted everyone's discussion. In this realm, the power of the will of heaven and earth is not something that can be resisted by humans. I'm afraid that only the will of heaven and earth can deal with it. The intense discussion calmed down, and everyone revealed thoughtful expressions. Feng Wujiang said, "Little junior brother, you mean?" Lu Yi said, "I think that the 9 prefectures Tianji has been strategizing for so many years, so it's impossible that he doesn't know anything about the blood-refining realm. This can be seen from our previous experience of sneaking into the blood-refining realm. Tianji knows that if outside creatures invade the blood-refining realm, they will be targeted by the will of heaven and earth. So when we were sent here, we all sealed our cultivation and needed a special method to slowly unlock the seal. Since that's the case, when the cultivators of the 9 prefectures arrive at the blood-refining realm on a large scale, it's impossible for Tianji to be indifferent. Only the will of heaven and earth can resist the will of heaven and earth, and we have such an existence in the 9 prefectures." His words caused everyone's eyes to light up. "Of course, this is just my guess. We still need to verify the situation, or ask directly." Feng Wujiang's expression was solemn. "We can't be careless about this. If little junior brother has a way, verify it as soon as possible." He had also used the Tianji pillar to communicate with the 9 prefectures Tianji, but he only received some revelations and guidance. His era had passed, and the 9 prefectures Tianji wouldn't be too biased towards him. However, Lu Yi was different. This era obviously belonged to Lu Yi, so if Lu Yi came forward, he might be able to get more information. Lu Yi nodded. "Please wait for a moment." With that, he flashed out of the hall and went straight to the Tianji pillar. He raised his hand and placed it on the pillar, trying to connect with the Tianji pillar. It was very easy to do this in the 9 prefectures, but this was the blood-refining realm after all, and it was far away. Lu Yi waited for a moment before he felt a trace of feedback from the Tianji pillar. Little Nine's voice sounded in his mind. "What's the matter?" Lu Yi hurriedly recounted his encounter with the heavenly punishment and the will of heaven and earth of the blood refinement realm, and asked about how to deal with it. Xiao Jiu's voice sounded again. "Don't worry, I'll deal with the will of the world in this world. I won't let the heavenly punishment descend." It was just as he had expected. Lu Yi hurriedly returned to the main hall. Everyone's attention was focused on him, and he reported the results. All of them heaved a sigh of relief. Now that the biggest problem had been solved, the rest was no longer a problem. For a moment they were all in a daze. Just half a day ago, they were still worrying about the future survival of Blue Blood Holy Land. But after Lu Ye's arrival, they now had to consider how to eradicate the blood race in blood refining world. The situation had changed so quickly that even these divine sea realm masters were caught off guard. However, this was something that everyone was happy to see and was looking forward to. The cultivation world of the 9 prefectures was on an expedition to blood refining realm. This was a war between realms, and it was a war between the human race and the blood race. No one had ever fought a war on such a scale. As a nail nailed into the blood refining realm by the cultivation world of the 9 prefectures, Blue Blood Holy Land was the bridgehead of this war, which was of great significance. The current situation was that the enemy was in the open while they were in the dark. The blood race was focused on getting rid of the cancerous tumor that was Blue Blood Holy Land. But they didn't know that they had been targeted by the human race cultivators of another realm. So once the war broke out, the blood race would be caught off guard. How to effectively shorten the duration of the war, and how to effectively eliminate the blood race, was the next problem that everyone needed to consider. And the most realistic problem was the timing of the war. If they chose the right time, they would get twice the result with half the effort. Everyone present was clear on this point. Little junior brother shouldn't have come here just to pass on information from the 9 prefectures, right? Do you have some other mission on hand? As someone who had obtained the heaven's secrets of the previous era, And as the current master of the Blue Blood Holy Land, Feng Wujiang's understanding of the heaven's secrets of the 9 prefectures was deeper than anyone else's. But unlike Lu Yi, he had never had direct contact or communication with Little Nine, so he wasn't clear on Little Nine's background. But he was well aware of the heaven's secrets of the 9 prefectures. For Lu Yi to come to the blood refining realm at this time clearly wasn't just to pass on information, but also a special mission. Lu Yi nodded. I brought over 100 Heaven's Secrets pillars with me. Heaven's Secrets wants me to place these Heaven's Secrets pillars all over the blood refining realm. When the war breaks out, the cultivators of the 9 prefectures can use the Heaven's Secrets pillars to directly enter the blood refining realm. A knowing expression immediately appeared on Feng Wujiang's face. When he first came to the blood refining realm, he had also brought a Heaven's Secrets pillar with him, which was the one currently standing in the Heaven's Secrets Hall. It was also because of this Heaven's Secrets pillar that the Blue Blood Holy Land was able to receive support from the 9 prefectures from time to time. Otherwise, with the general situation of the blood refining realm, even if he gathered many old seniors to establish the Blue Blood Holy Land, he wouldn't have enough resources to complete the Holy Land, let alone nurture human cultivators. If he could bring a Heaven's Secrets pillar with him, then Lu Yi could naturally do the same. But he didn't expect Lu Yi to bring over 100 Heaven's Secrets pillars. What Lu Yi needed to do now was to find a suitable place to place these Heaven's Secrets pillars. What do you think about the placement of the Heaven's Secrets pillars, little junior brother? Feng Wujiang asked. Lu Yi's eyes blossomed with an ominous glint. I want to place a batch around the Divine Gate Sea. That way, when the Blood Tribe army encircles the Holy Land, the cultivators of the 9 prefectures will be able to descend from the heavens and surround them. At that time, the elites of the Holy Land will be able to coordinate with the reinforcements from the 9 prefectures. We'll definitely be able to catch the Blood Tribe army off guard. The dozen or so seniors felt their eyelids twitch when they heard this. Lu Yi had always given them the impression that he was a gentle and respectful young man, but they didn't expect him to have such a ferocious nature. However, this ferociousness was clearly inherited from the Holy Lord. Although the Holy Lord was usually gentle and modest, when he fought with a Blood Tribe expert, he was extremely violent and ferocious. They had personally witnessed the Holy Lord beat a Blood Tribe Saint Seed to death. It was also that battle that completely established Feng Wujiang's position as the Holy Lord. Even though they were all-powerful beings who could suppress an era, there was still a gap between them and Feng Wujiang. When the time came, if the Blood Tribe really was encircled by the 9 prefectures' army, while encircling the Blue Blood Holy Land, then with the Holy Land's reinforcements, the casualties would be unimaginable. Over the years, the Blood Tribe had always sent an extremely large force to encircle the Holy Land. If they were to cripple such an army, the Blood Tribe's foundation would be greatly damaged. They didn't dare to say that they would be able to pacify the southern territory of the Blood Refinement Realm in one battle, but at the very least, the Blood Tribe wouldn't be able to do much within a radius of 1,000,000 miles. When the time came, the human army would head north and gather the scattered human cultivators along the way. They would then be able to sweep through the entire Blood Refinement Realm and wipe out the Blood Refinement Realm. It was a very simple battle tactic, but it was the most effective one. It was to catch the Blood Tribe off guard. In this way, the timing of the battle could be determined. It would be the next time the Blood Tribe army encircled the Blue Blood Holy Land. No one had any objections to this. In terms of time, the longer the battle dragged on, the more advantageous it would be for the 9 prefectures. This was because the later the battle started, the closer the distance between the 2 realms would be. At that time, it would be easier for the cultivators of the 9 prefectures to teleport over with the help of the Tianji pillar. Of course, they couldn't wait too long. If they really waited until the 2 realms collided, it would be too late. They had to control the timing. Although the Shenke Sea is large, if you want to place the Tianji pillars, you won't need more than 10. You can leave this to us, Feng Wujiang said. I was thinking the same thing, Lu Yi said as he took out 10 Tianji pillars and handed them to Feng Wujiang. As for the remaining Tianji pillars, he would have to put in some effort to place them. Do you need the Holy Land's help? Feng Wujiang asked. Lu Yi shook his head. Eldest senior brother, and the other seniors can just stay in the Holy Land. I'll take care of the rest. It's just running around a bit more. In fact, if there was someone to help, the efficiency would naturally be higher. However, there weren't any suitable people among the seniors who stayed in the Holy Land. The ones who were suitable for this task were ghost cultivators. The Tianji pillars had to be placed in places with dense heaven and earth spirit qi. Only then would the Tianji pillars be effective. For example, when he was in the Wushuang continent, he placed the 4 Tianji pillars in the 4 great secret realms, because there were earth veins in the secret realms. In the blood refining realm, places with dense heaven and earth spirit qi were usually blessed lands. Blood tribe members gathered there, so they had to sneak in secretly. Ghost cultivators were suitable for this task, but others couldn't. Of course, they could also kill their way in, but that would expose some things. It wouldn't be good if they attracted the attention of the blood tribe. This kind of thing had to be done secretly. Of the dozens of seniors in the Jade Blood Sacred Land, only a few ghost cultivators led by Wu Chang were in the Holy Land. Then I'll have to trouble you, junior brother. Feng Wujiang nodded slightly. He wasn't worried about Lu Ye's safety. A few years ago, when Lu Yi first came to the blood refining realm, he was only in the True Lake realm. At that time, he could run all the way from the north to the Shunkei Sea. It didn't make sense that he would be in danger now that he was in the Divine Sea realm. Since his junior brother was chosen by Tianji, he must have many abilities that ordinary people didn't have. Not to mention other things, just soul control alone was not something that others could imitate. If he acted alone, he could use soul control to enslave the blood tribe members to hide his identity. But if others followed him, it wouldn't be so convenient. There's no time to lose. I'll set off now. Although the preparation before the battle was a long process, Lu Yi wanted to place many Tianji pillars. Naturally, the sooner he acted, the better. Even if he placed one more Tianji pillar, there would be one more 9 continents cultivator teleported to the blood refining realm. Choice. He left immediately. But before he left, Feng Wujiang gave him a jade tablet and reminded him in a deep voice. If you encounter danger, channel your spirit energy into it. The seniors who go out all have jade tablets like this. If you're not far away, they'll be able to sense it and help you at a critical moment. Look at the human Tao Great Sage. Chapter 1142. In addition to the jade token, Lu Yi also obtained a map of the blood refining realm from his eldest senior brother. This map was the result of many years of exploration of the blood refining realm by his seniors. Although it was not as detailed as the map of the 9 states, it was more or less enough. At the very least, it was more detailed than the map Lu Yi obtained from Lan Qiyu. As soon as he left the main hall, he saw a tall and sturdy figure standing there stiffly. It was Dao 13. As the person who was planted with the soul manipulation divine mark by Lu Yi, he could sense Lu Ye's presence to a certain extent. When he saw Lu Yi again, he squeezed out an extremely stiff smile on his face, and then trotted over with cheerful steps, looking exactly like a lost dog that had found its owner again. Stay here, Lu Yi ordered and soared into the sky. The smile on Dao 13's face instantly disappeared, and he lowered his head, sulking. The last time Lu Yi returned to the 9 states, he did not follow him. This time, they finally met again, but Lu Yi did not bring him along. He was a little unhappy. His figure flew out of the Holy Island, crossed the Divine Gate Sea, and headed north. Last time, Lu Yi set off from Thousand Flows Blessed Land, and finally arrived at the Blue Blood Holy Land. It took him several months on the road, but in the end, he met Jian Guhong and the others by chance, and was brought into the Blue Blood Holy Land. Otherwise, it would have taken him much longer. This showed how vast the blood refining realm was. But at that time, he was only a true lake realm cultivator. Now he was a 5th-order divine sea realm cultivator. In terms of speed alone, he could not be compared to back then. Lu Yi silently calculated. According to his current speed, it would take him less than 2 months to reach Thousand Flows Blessed Land from the Divine Gate Sea, if he walked in a straight line. But now, He was responsible for placing heaven's fate pillars everywhere in the blood-refining realm. Naturally, he could not walk in a straight line. After a little planning, he decided to take a repeated zigzag route. In this way, he could try to find suitable places to place heaven's fate pillars along the way. When the war started, the cultivators of the 9 states could use these heaven's fate pillars to directly teleport to various parts of the blood-refining realm. Time might be a little tight, but now he could only do his best. Now that the plan was set, the first thing he needed to do was to capture a suitable blood tribe member and plant the soul manipulation divine sigil in him, turning him into his soul slave. As a human, it was inconvenient for him to act in the blood-refining realm unless he could activate the concealment spiritual inscriptions at all times to hide his figure. But that would be too troublesome. So the best thing to do is to follow the example of the last time, when Heqian Liufu borrowed the power of the blood race to control any living being. There were no living beings within 100,000 miles of the divine watchtower sea. By Spirit Sea realm cultivators of the human race who were taking a stroll were killed. When the sacred land of the Quanding County was established, eldest senior brother and the others had already killed all the Spirit Sea realm cultivators within a radius of 100,000 miles. The human race had all migrated to the Saint Island, and these humans were the foundation of the Jade Blood Holy Land. It could be said that in the entire blood-refining world, the area within 100,000 miles around the Shenke Sea was the most deserted. Lu Yi didn't see any signs of human habitation until he was 100,000 miles away. There were human villages and blood tribe cave dwellings, but they were very sparse. The map given by eldest senior brother didn't indicate the existence of many paradises, but there was no need to deliberately search for paradises. As long as one followed the direction where the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered, they would naturally be found. 3 days after leaving the Jade Blood Holy Land, Lu Yi flew over the sky and saw several streaks of blood light passing by from the side. Apparently, the other party had also noticed him. Almost at the same time, they tacitly changed directions and charged toward each other. Lu Yi was looking for a suitable soul slave. Among these streaks of blood light, there was a Spirit Sea realm blood tribe member, which was a good choice. As for these blood tribe members, they had obviously noticed Lu Yi's identity as a human and wanted to harm him. The light of the blood tribe was different from that of the human race. Because of their blood techniques, the blood tribe's light was blood red, making it extremely easy to distinguish. Under normal circumstances, blood tribe members would avoid this kind of human, because recently, the Spirit Sea realm masters of the Jade Blood Holy Land had been causing trouble everywhere. These human masters were not something ordinary blood tribe members could deal with. Only the Saint Seed could contend with them. However, the spirit chi fluctuations Lu Yi was showing at this moment were only at the 5th order divine sea realm. Obviously, he wasn't a top master, so these blood tribe members were tempted. Under the premise of each side's intentions, the distance between them quickly narrowed. When the blood tribe members saw Lu Yi's appearance, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Because he was too young, it was impossible for the top masters of the Jade Blood Holy Land to have such a young face, so they took it for granted that Lu Yi was just an ordinary Spirit Sea realm cultivator. Even so, the Spirit Sea realm leader didn't act carelessly. He was a 6th order divine sea realm cultivator, a minor realm higher than Lu Yi. Although the blood tribe members under his command were all at the True Lake realm, because they all cultivated the same blood techniques, they could provide considerable help to him. If he wanted to take down Lu Yi in one fell swoop, he would have to use his most powerful blood technique to create a suitable fighting space. Otherwise, the human opposite him would sense something was wrong and would most likely flee. In an instant, the Spirit Sea realm leader came up with a plan. At the same time, Lu Yi was also considering how to take down this blood tribe member. It wouldn't be troublesome to kill him, but killing an enemy and capturing him alive were two different things. The former was much simpler, especially after capturing him alive. Lu Yi would have to find a way to break the other party's soul defenses and plant the soul manipulation divine rune in his Spirit Sea. A few years ago, when he traveled south, He had planted the soul manipulation divine rune in many blood tribe members, but basically all of them were blessing masters, or true lake realm cultivators. Only by chance did he manage to enslave a spirit sea realm, heavenly venerable blood tribe member. The soul manipulation divine rune was powerful, but it wasn't easy to use. Therefore, he had to make sure that the spirit sea realm blood tribe member opposite him wouldn't escape after he revealed his powerful strength. Otherwise, with the blood tribe's exquisite blood escape technique, it wouldn't be easy to chase after him. He had to end the battle quickly to avoid attracting the attention of other nearby blood tribe members. After making their own calculations, they all simultaneously activated a technique. Blood River Technique. As a secret technique that gathered all the blood techniques, the Blood River Technique was both offensive and defensive. It was especially effective in trapping enemies. Once an enemy fell into the blood river, if they couldn't escape, they could only be slaughtered. The Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member's body trembled, blood chi filled the air, and in an instant a blood river spread out. At the same time, a few true Lake Realm blood tribe members under his command also activated the Blood River Technique. They merged their blood river with the Blood River Technique and increased its volume. Almost at the same time, the Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member saw a scene that shocked him. The human flying over from the opposite side was also surrounded by blood mist. A blood river spread out. How could a human use the Blood River Technique? He couldn't understand. Furthermore, this human's Blood River Technique seemed to be even more exquisite than his own, a pure-blooded member of the Blood Clan. In particular, the volume of the Blood River could be said to be enormous. Even if he had the help of a few followers, there was no way for him to compare in terms of volume. In comparison, the difference was like a small snake and a big python. Lu Yi was actually a little surprised. When he activated the Blood River Technique before, it didn't have such a huge volume. However, considering that after counterattacking the insect race's great arcane realm and refining the insect race's enormous vitality, it was normal for the Blood River Technique to grow. After all, the foundation of this technique was vitality. The stronger the vitality, the greater the power it could unleash. After leaving the insect race's great arcane realm, he hadn't activated the Blood River Technique again. He didn't know such a change would happen. It was a good thing for him. But for a Spirit Sea Realm blood race cultivator, this was a great evil. If the blood river was only smaller than Lu Ye's, it would have been fine. What made him feel even more uneasy was that Lu Ye's blood river was actually transmitting an invisible pressure that shook his blood vessels and made his mind uneasy. This was bloodline suppression. His opponent was a holy seed. The Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member was shocked. He only had time to cry out, "Holy Venerable, please calm down." The two surging blood rivers collided, like a big fish eating a small fish. Lu Ye's blood river wrapped around his opponent's Blood River Technique. His figure shuttled through the Blood River Technique, and with a few flashes of his blade, the true Lake Realm blood tribe members were killed. What puzzled Lu Yi was that regardless of whether it was the true Lake stage or the spiritual sea stage blood race, all of them had a look of fear on their faces. Coupled with the words that the spiritual sea stage blood race shouted earlier, Lu Yi suddenly had some guesses. The Mountain Pan Saber was placed on the Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member's neck. Spiritual energy was fluctuating, licking the Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member's skin like a poisonous snake. A low voice sounded, "How do you want to die?" The Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member trembled all over. He didn't resist at all. His voice trembled as he said, "I didn't know you were here, Holy Venerable. Please forgive me for offending you." Lu Yi lowered his eyes slightly and scolded, "Open up your Spirit Sea." The Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member trembled. "What do you want, Holy Venerable?" Even though he was facing a holy seed and had a natural bloodline suppression, opening up his Spirit Sea still made him instinctively reject it. Lu Yi didn't say anything. He only pressed the Mountain Pan Saber against the blood tribe member's neck a little harder. The blood tribe member immediately cried out in pain. Of course, some flesh wounds weren't enough for a Spirit Sea Realm blood tribe member to make a fuss about it. After the Mountain Pan Saber merged with the soul-severing saber, it had the ability to sever souls. No matter how small the wound was, it still caused some impact to his soul. The feedback from his soul was like being cut by a saber, realizing that if he didn't do as he was told, he would really die here. The Spirit Sea Realm Blood Tribe member didn't dare to hesitate anymore. He hurriedly opened up his Spirit Sea. Lu Yi sensed it and hurriedly activated the Soul Manipulation Divine Soul, constructing the Soul Manipulation Divine Rune in the depths of his Spirit Sea. After a while, Lu Yi put away the Mountain Pan Saber. The blood river that filled the sky also separated and returned to their bodies. Look at the human Tao Great Sage. Chapter 1143. Let's go down. Lu Yi called out and took the lead to fly down. He was too obvious a target in the sky, and although the battle just now had been short, it was inevitable that the nearby vampires would have noticed the commotion. There was something he wanted to clarify, so he naturally had to find a suitable place to talk. The vampires hurriedly followed. A short while later, the human and vampire arrived at a remote area. Lu Yi stood still and looked at the vampire, who followed behind him respectfully. After planting the soul manipulation seed, this guy was his soul slave, so it was natural for him to be so respectful. What's your name? Your humble servant is Lu Chang. The vampires bowed his head and replied. Look up at me. Lu Chang quickly looked up at Lu Yi, and after a while, he showed a suspicious look. Holy Lord, are you a human or a divine clan? Although those who were planted with the soul manipulation seed would be loyal to Lu Yi, and would not have any rebellious thoughts, their intelligence would not be affected, and naturally, their thinking ability would not be damaged. Therefore, Lu Chang was really confused at this moment, because he thought that Lu Yi was a holy lord disguised as a human. But now that he looked carefully, it did not seem like it. Do I look like a vampire to you? Lu Chang shook his head. Your humble servant does not know. Lu Yi slightly activated the blood art, and in an instant, the surface of his body was filled with blood mist. Lu Chang was terrified. Please calm down, Holy Lord. If your humble servant has said or done something wrong, please enlighten me. Lu Yi, on the other hand, understood. If he didn't activate his blood arts, the blood race wouldn't be able to feel the bloodline suppression. However, once he activated his blood arts, the bloodline suppression would be obvious. That was why Lu Chang was so terrified. This was something that Lu Yi did not expect. Just like the changes in the blood river, it was completely undetectable before it was activated. Last time, after the vampires besieged the Jade Blood Holy Land, he went deep into the Blood Sea when he was preparing to advance to the Divine Sea Realm. By chance, he refined a drop of holy blood and obtained the bloodline inheritance of the vampires. The holy blood was the key to the blood race's holy seed. Every holy seed had obtained the holy blood in the Blood Sea. After refining that drop of sacred blood, Lu Yi was able to advance to the Divine Sea Realm. However, since then, he had not fought against the Blood Kindred again. Naturally, he did not know that he had gained some of the Holy Seed's abilities, such as the bloodline suppression on ordinary Blood Kindred. In a sense, he could be considered a holy seed, but he was still a human. Why did this happen? Logically speaking, the talent tree could burn all impurities. Even if there was something special about the sacred blood, it would lose the ability to create a sacred seed after being burned. Therefore, it shouldn't have the ability to suppress the bloodline of the blood breeds. But on second thought, since he could even obtain the inheritance of the blood breeds, it didn't seem strange that he could obtain the ability of the holy seed. There must be some holiness in the sacred blood that even the innate talent tree couldn't burn, or didn't need to burn. After he refined and absorbed it, not only did he obtain the bloodline inheritance of the blood kindred, but he also gained the ability of a sacred seed. What a pleasant surprise! When he first set off from Qianlu Blessed Land, Lan Qiyue had once given him a Saint Blood Jade. It was an item that she had nurtured with her own blood. When activated, it had a great deterrent effect on ordinary blood breeds. However, several years had passed, and the sacred blood jade gradually lost its effect. Otherwise, Lu Yi would have taken it out to fight against the enemy this time. Now that he had the holiness of a sacred seed, he no longer needed the sacred blood jade. This meant that he had the ability to kill ordinary blood breeds, and he could also plant the soul manipulation divine sigil on any ordinary blood breeds at will. This would obviously be of great help to his mission. Are there any grotto heavens nearby? Lu Yi asked. Lu Chang replied respectfully, 300 miles to the east, there is a Sea Leap grotto heaven. This humble one has some friendship with Lord Sea Leap. Take me there. After a short while, 2 streams of light rushed into the sky and swept toward the east. A moment later, they arrived at the Sea Leap grotto heaven. Lu Chang's friendship with Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap was not shallow, so he led Lu Yi straight in. The blood breeds in the grotto heaven not only did not stop them, but also warmly welcomed them. Lu Chang asked a few questions and learned that Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap was inside the grotto heaven. So he did not stop and rushed straight to the grotto heaven's backyard. After a short while, they met face to face and exchanged pleasantries. Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap was naturally curious about Lu Chang bringing a human over, but Lu Chang only said that this was his new blood slave, which made Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap envious. It had to be known that although the blood race had the ability to take in human blood slaves, the higher the cultivation level of the blood race, the less likely they would do so. This was because it was basically impossible to find a powerful human. What was the point of a blood race member in the Spirit Sea tier, taking in Cloud River tier and Spirit Stream tier blood slaves? Generally, only blood breeds with low cultivation would collect blood slaves. Therefore Lu Yi, a blood slave at the 5th Order Divine Sea Realm, was very enviable. After a few casual words, Lu Chang had a mysterious look on his face. He wanted to show Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap something good, so Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap dismissed his attendants. In an instant, the blood river surged, and an invisible pressure suddenly descended. Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap had the same experience as Lu Chang. Although he was a little puzzled as to how a human could suppress his bloodline, the aura of the Saint Seed was not fake. Lu Yi planted the soul manipulation divine rune on him and turned him into a soul slave. The next thing was easy. Lu Yi asked Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap to find a suitable and hidden place and personally planted a Heaven's Fate pillar. He also asked Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap to turn this place into a forbidden area where no blood breeds could enter or leave. Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap had no choice but to obey. From entering Sea Leap Grotto Heaven to leaving, only half an hour had passed. Along the way, Heavenly Venerable Sea Leap followed the map in a zigzag manner, looking for a suitable place to plant the Heaven's Fate pillar. With Lu Chang covering for him, there was a lot less trouble along the way. Not to mention other things, just entering the Grotto Heavens became very easy. Lu Yi keenly sensed that the blood breeds were indeed gathering an army. This was because there were a large number of blood breeds stationed in each Grotto Heaven. They could be summoned at any time and form an army to attack the Shen KC. The reason why they hadn't acted yet was obviously because the blood breeds were trying their best to gather as many blood breeds as possible. The Jade Blood Holy Land, this malignant tumor, had been stalking the blood breeds for 10 years. Now that they finally had a chance, how could they not go all out? The closer they were to the Shen KC, the more obvious the signs of the blood breeds gathering became. From time to time, they could see groups of blood breeds flying toward the south. Normally, Lu Yi would choose to take action when he encountered such a situation. He would eliminate the small number of blood breeds and let go of the large number for the time being. His mission was to plant as many Heaven's Fate pillars as possible. Time was of the essence, and he couldn't waste it casually. After leaving the Jade Blood Holy Land for a month, he had lost a dozen or so Heaven's Fate pillars. At this rate, it would take him half a year to plant all the Heaven's Fate pillars. That was far too long. But he didn't have a good solution to this problem. While he was worried, he could only hurry along. Every time he found a suitable place, he would quickly take in Empyrean blood breeds as soul slaves and secretly plant Heaven's Fate pillars. Another half a month later, Lu Yi and Lu Chang were flying through the air. Suddenly their expressions changed. They grabbed a jade token at their waist and immersed themselves in it. They could clearly feel a trace of guidance coming from the jade token. This jade token was given to him by his eldest senior apprentice brother before he left. All the old seniors who left the Jade Blood Holy Land would carry such a jade token with them. Within a certain distance, This jade token could be used to contact each other or ask for help. This thing couldn't be compared to a sound transmission stone. It could transmit a clear message, but the range of its use was much greater. His eldest senior apprentice brother had given him this jade token, so that if he encountered any danger outside, he could use it to send out a call for help. If there was a senior nearby, they could help him. But along the way, Lu Yi hadn't used the jade token, but he had always hung it at his waist in case of an accident. At this time, the jade token was emitting a sound. Obviously, a senior nearby was gathering people, or had encountered some danger, and needed help. He didn't dare to neglect, and hurriedly flew in the direction of the jade token. After flying for 4 hours, he finally landed in a desolate mountain. After searching carefully for a while, he found a concealed cave and walked in slowly. This was a spacious cave, but there was no trace of anyone. Lu Yi said, "Which senior is here?" Not far away, the void fluctuated, and a familiar figure appeared with a surprised expression. "Lu Yi boy, why are you here? Did you come back from the 9 provinces?" The one who used the jade token to gather people was Wu Chang. He was also one of the few seniors who was most familiar with Lu Yi. Lu Yi fixed his eyes on him and observed him carefully. Judging from his appearance, he didn't seem to be injured or in any danger. Since that was the case, he didn't know why he was gathering people. However, these old seniors were all scattered outside, stirring up trouble. If they hadn't encountered something major, they wouldn't gather people like this. "Greetings, senior." Lu Yi bowed. Wu Chang stepped forward and smiled. "Good boy, I knew you would come back. When did you come back?" "A month and a half ago," Lu Yi replied. Lu Yi told Wu Chang about the current situation in the 9 provinces, and the decision to go on an expedition to the blood-refining realm. For a moment, Wu Chang's blood boiled and his emotions were excited. He looked at the human Dao great sage. Chapter 1144. Although Wu Chang and the others were all at the peak of the Divine Sea realm, they would not leave the Jade Blood Sacred Land unless they had no other choice. Last time, the Blood Race army besieged the Sacred Land, causing a gap to appear in the last line of defense. If this happened again, the Sacred Land might not be able to survive. Although Lu Yi will definitely come back before he leaves, and will bring back a group of helpers, who can say for sure that this kind of thing will happen? What if Lu Yi did not come back? What if Lu Yi did not bring enough helpers? Therefore, they were doing their best. They spread out and attacked, stirring up the wind and clouds, trying to delay the gathering of the Blood Race army, while killing as many of them as possible. Now that Lu Yi had returned and brought back such great news, how could Wu Chang not be excited? With the entire cultivation world of the 9 provinces as their backing, how could the human race be afraid of a mere blood race? He really did not expect the situation to change so dramatically, mainly because this fact was beyond imagination. "Do the others know?" Wu Chang asked. Lu Yi shook his head. "I only met Senior when I came out of the Sacred Land. I haven't met anyone else yet." Wu Chang said, "You have to tell them the good news as soon as possible. Leave this matter to me. What is your task?" Lu Yi took out a Tianji pillar. "Place this thing all over the blood-refining realm. I was just about to ask for Senior's help." Wu Chang immediately understood. "How many?" Lu Yi immediately took out all the Tianji pillars. Wu Chang grinned. "This is a big deal. If all these things are placed, there will be no safe place in the blood-refining realm. Give me half. I'm going to find those old farts anyway. I can deal with these 2 things together." Lu Yi did not hesitate, and immediately gave half of the Tianji pillars to Wu Chang. "Senior, why did you summon me?" Lu Yi finally had time to ask Wu Chang's purpose. Since he was not injured and needed reinforcements, it must be something else. "Kill the holy seed." Wu Chang's expression suddenly became fierce. Lu Yi could not help but raise his eyebrows, secretly sighing that this ghost cultivator senior's appetite was really big. However, since it was to kill the holy seed, it was impossible to rely on him alone. Every holy seed had the strength of these old seniors. No one could kill the holy seed one-on-one, so naturally, he had to gather helpers. But he did not expect that he would not be able to gather others, but Lu Yi. It was a coincidence. "Senior, I'm afraid that the two of us won't be enough to kill the holy seed. Lu Yi was a little hesitant. Although Wu Chang was very strong, and he himself was not weak, a saint seed was not something that could be easily killed. It was still the same principle. In a battle, defeating and killing were two completely different things. Relatively speaking, the latter was much more difficult than the former. In particular, the blood race's blood escape technique was extremely exquisite. Even if they had the upper hand, the holy seed that had been targeted would definitely escape as soon as it sensed that something was wrong. By then, who would be able to catch up to it? Naturally, it's not just the two of us. There are others nearby, but I don't know how many will come. Kid, this matter is a little dangerous. It's best if you don't participate. Although when Lu Yi arrived, Wu Chang had already noticed that Lu Ye's cultivation had reached the 5th order Divine Sea realm. For a battle of this level, a 5th order cultivation was indeed a bit low. Wu Chang was also worried that Lu Yi would suffer some kind of accident, which was why he had tried to persuade him. Lu Yi smiled and said, "Senior underestimates me. I can't guarantee anything else, but if we really fight, I can at least ensure that I don't become a burden to seniors. When the time comes, seniors will take the lead while this junior will provide support." Although time was tight before, now that half of the Heaven's Fate pillar had been given to Wu Chang, there was much more time. The old seniors wanted to kill the holy seed, so how could Lu Yi miss such a good opportunity? The holy seed was the strongest fighting force in this world, and although there weren't many of them, in the vast world, there were still many. When the two clans collided, there was a chance they would encounter each other. Familiarizing himself with the holy seed's strength in advance would not be a bad thing. Seeing him insist, Wu Chang didn't say anything more. The two of them waited in silence. From beginning to end, Lu Chang only stood quietly to the side, not making a sound. After the time it would take to burn a stick of incense, Lu Yi noticed an aura rapidly approaching, and a short time later, a figure walked into the cave. This figure was tall and straight like a sword, and although his aura had been restrained, it still gave off a sharp feeling. Naturally, it was Jian Guhong. Seeing Lu Yi, Jian Guhong's reaction was the same as Wu Chang's, very surprised. This time, without waiting for Lu Yi to explain anything, Wu Chang had already volunteered to report all kinds of information. Just as they were talking, another person came over, sensing the summons. It was an old senior called Wei Fufeng. Thus, after another round of surprise, Wu Chang gave a new round of narration. Good. Wei Fufeng stroked his beard and said with relief, "I was worried about the next encirclement of the Blood Race's army. But I didn't expect the situation to take such a turn for the better. It's time for the 9 provinces to prosper, and the human race to prosper." Jian Guhong nodded and said, "In this way, our previous worries are no longer a problem. Wu Chang, did you summon us here for this?" "Of course not. I didn't know that Lu Yi had returned. He happened to be nearby and was also summoned." "Then what is it for?" Wu Chang chuckled and said, "I want to kill a holy seed and need help." Wei Fufeng leisurely glanced at Wu Chang and said, "You've killed many holy seeds over the years, but you've never succeeded. So where did your confidence come from this time? Holy seeds are usually in the Holy Land, and there are many experts in the Holy Land. Once exposed, you may not be able to escape even if fellow Taoist Jian and I come to your rescue." Wu Chang curled his lips and said, "I'm so stupid as to go to the Holy Land. Naturally, it's in the wild." Jian Guhong's eyes flashed and he said, "Tell me in detail." "Follow me." Wu Chang waved his hand and took the lead to fly out. There was no need to continue waiting. Until now, no one else had arrived, so there shouldn't be anyone else coming. The detection of the jade token was also limited by the distance. Everyone looked at each other and followed closely behind. As they flew forward, Wu Chang transmitted his voice through divine thought. "Yesterday, I accidentally bumped into the whereabouts of a holy seed. I originally wanted to follow him and see if I could find a chance to sneak attack him. However, that guy actually entered the blood pool and seemed to want to cultivate. I felt that this was an opportunity, so I gathered people." Jian Guhong and Wei Fufeng heard this and immediately understood Wu Chang's plan. He was obviously waiting for the rabbit to come out. It was indeed a good opportunity. For so many years, the old seniors of the 9 states had fought many times with the holy seeds. But to be honest, they hadn't achieved anything. So far, the only one who had killed a holy seed head-on was Feng Wujiang. If they could successfully kill a holy seed this time, the harvest would not be small. Killing a holy seed before the 2 clans collided might reduce the losses of the human race. However, killing a holy seed was not that simple. Usually, holy seeds stayed in their holy land and would not leave easily. Even a ghost cultivator like Wu Chang would not trespass into a dangerous place like the Holy Land. When a holy seed left the Holy Land, it was very difficult to track its movements because when the old seniors discovered the holy seed would also discover them. Only a ghost cultivator like Wu Chang would have the opportunity to bump into the holy seed's whereabouts without being discovered. This was the reason for today's operation. The blood pool that the holy seed had entered was not far from where everyone was gathered. It was less than 300 miles away. Soon, the group arrived at a location 10 miles away from the blood pool. They all concealed their auras and quietly looked over. Indeed, they saw a blood pool with surging blood. It hasn't been long, so that holy seed must still be in the blood pool. His perception of the outside world is very good now, so even if we guard there, he won't be able to discover us. My intention is to set up an array to trap him first. When he appears, we will work together to kill him. Ghost cultivators were usually proficient in array Dao, especially top ghost cultivators like Wu Chang. Their attainments in array Dao were extremely high, so it was natural for them to use array Dao to kill the enemy. However, there is a problem now. If the holy seed senses that something is wrong, it is very likely that it will escape back into the blood pool. When that happens, we won't be able to do anything to it. Wu Chang turned to look at Wei Fufeng. Old Wei, is there a way to solve this? He himself was powerless, so there was no need to ask Jian Guhong. As a sword cultivator, he had never relied on external forces. This had always been a sword cultivator's tradition. Therefore, if there was someone who could solve this problem, it was none other than Wei Fufeng. If even Wei Fufeng couldn't solve this problem, then they could only try their best to suppress the holy seed and prevent it from escaping into the blood pool. Otherwise, once it entered the blood pool, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Wei Fufeng smiled slightly. What a coincidence. I happen to have a treasure that can be used here. Wu Chang grinned. I knew you had many tricks up your sleeve. Then it's settled. I will set up the array first. You guys don't show yourselves. I will help. Lu Yi volunteered. There weren't many opportunities to witness the array Dao attainments of a top ghost cultivator at such a close distance. Wu Chang was a little surprised. You know array Dao too? I know a little. The 2 of them flashed and flew toward the blood pool. Wu Chang quickly realized that Lu Ye's attainments in array Dao weren't at the level of a little, but rather quite proficient. Although there was still a gap between him and Wu Chang, the age gap between them was still there. Wu Chang couldn't figure out how Lu Yi had the time to study array Dao at such a young age. One had to know that it took time to accumulate knowledge, and wasn't something that could be determined by talent. Moreover, Lu Ye's cultivation was also far superior to his peers. This was very inconceivable. With Lu Ye's help, great arrays were set up one after another. There was no need to worry about being exposed. The holy seed had sunk so deep into the blood pool that it couldn't sense what was going on outside. Lu Yi benefited a lot from this process. His attainments in array Dao were basically a gift from the 100 Formation Pagoda. However, the 100 Formation Pagoda was an inanimate object, while Wu Chang was a living person. Many of his unconstrained ideas and array techniques weren't from the 100 Formation Pagoda, but he could benefit from Wu Chang. Look at /human great sage / just /remember /domain /name /::w /w /w /8 /2 /z /w /c /o /m /. Chapter 1145. The strategy to kill the Saint Seed was very simple. Wu Chang, Jian Guhong, and Wei Fufeng would be the main attackers. Lu Yi would be in charge of the spirit array, And as for Lu Chang, all he had to do was watch from afar. Although his 6th order divine sea cultivation wasn't weak, it wasn't enough in a battle of this level, especially when the opponent was a saint seed. The suppression of his bloodline alone made it impossible for him to fight. Originally, Wu Chang was going to preside over the spirit array himself, but since Lu Yi was proficient in the spirit array Dao, it was naturally better to leave it to him. Everything was ready, and now all that was left was to wait for the saint seed to appear. Outside the blood pool, layers of spirit arrays were ready to be activated. Even Lu Yi and the others had restrained their auras to the extreme, using the spirit array as cover. Even if a blood race cultivator passed by nearby, they wouldn't notice their existence. The blood in the blood pool was churning, and the saint seed inside would never know that there was a great crisis waiting for it. Time passed. After waiting for 5 days, there was still no movement from the blood pool. The saint seed had no intention of appearing. This was normal. The blood pool was a forbidden area for ordinary blood race cultivators. Once they fell into it, they would die, but for saint seeds, it wasn't too dangerous. They could even use the blood pools that could be seen everywhere in the blood refining world to cultivate and quickly improve themselves. So, if a saint seed wanted to, it could stay in the blood pool forever. Not appearing for a mere 5 days was normal. Everyone was patient, but Lu Yi was the only one who had some problems. He couldn't stay here forever. Although there was a lot of time now, it wasn't good to delay like this. He still had many Heaven's Fate pillars waiting to be placed. However, it was impossible for the saint seed to stay in the blood pool forever. The blood race army was now assembling, and each saint seed had its own mission. Destroying the blue blood holy land was the greatest wish of the blood race in recent years, so even if it was cultivating, the saint seed wouldn't stay in the blood pool for too long. Time continued to pass, and another 10 days passed in a flash. Just as Lu Yi was about to lose his confidence, the blood in the blood pool began to churn even more fiercely. The few people who had been paying attention to the changes in the blood pool immediately became serious, knowing that the saint seed was about to appear. Lu Yi secretly urged his spirit array, ready to activate the spirit array at any time. Under his watch, a bloody light red of the blood race's figure. It was obviously a female blood race cultivator, dressed in extremely skimpy clothes. She was definitely a top-class existence in terms of her figure and appearance, but her crimson red skin that ruined her should-be beauty was ruined. It was unknown what she had gained in the blood pool, but when she appeared, she was clearly in a good mood. This could be seen from the slight curl of her lips. Once he was in a good mood, he relaxed his vigilance towards the outside world. Furthermore, she never thought that there would be a few powerful cultivators of the human race who had been watching her for half a month. Without a sound, a sharp aura suddenly appeared behind the female holy seed. It was Wu Chang. As expected of one of the top ghost cultivators. Even though Lu Yi knew that Wu Chang would make his move at this time and from this position, Lu Yi didn't notice it at all until Wu Chang made his move. The moment she felt the sharp aura, the female holy seed had already been hit. This was already the most powerful attack that an Anidya Hellguard could muster. The smile on the holy seed's face suddenly disappeared, and it turned into anger and fear. With a scream, the female holy seed's body turned into a ball of bloody light, and she quickly rushed forward. This was the best response in the face of a sneak attack. It was only at this moment that Wu Chang's figure appeared. He had obviously expected the saint seed's actions, so when the other party turned into a bloody light, he had already rushed forward, the 2 short blades in his hands slashing out cold light. At the same time, the sound of a sword rang out, and a sword light like a waterfall attacked from the side, stirring into the bloody light. Jian Guhong had also made his move. The female saint seed hiding in the bloody light sensed something was wrong. She had also participated in the siege of the Jade Blood Sacred Land, and fought the old seniors of the human race head-on. She knew how terrifying those old fellows were. Normally, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage if she fought one-on-one. She could use the various tricks of the blood race's secret arts, and not be at a disadvantage. But 1 against 2 was risky, especially when there was a sword cultivator on the other side. If she wasn't mistaken, it should be that guy called Jian Guhong. After fighting with each other for so many years, the Holy Seeds had more or less gained some understanding of the old seniors of the Jade Blood Holy Land. Aside from Holy Master Feng Wujiang, who they were extremely wary of, there were also several people they were wary of. One of them was the sword cultivator Jian Guhong. In terms of killing, he had left a deep impression on the Saint Seeds. So she just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. She had already used the blood escape art. In 2 breaths, she would be able to shake off these top human powerhouses. By then, even a sword cultivator wouldn't be able to catch up to her. But in the next breath, she crashed into a light screen. Her lightning-like speed brought about a great impact, and the light screen caved in. Lu Yi timely activated the formation that she had set up earlier. When the blood-red light bounced back, Wu Chang had already dived in. At the same time, under Jian Guhong's control, streaks of sword light turned into a river of swords and attacked the blood-red light. In an instant, the female Saint Seed's screams came from inside the blood-red light. Although she could use the blood-red light to hide her body, making it easy for the enemy to lock onto her specific position, she couldn't dodge all of the large-scale attacks like the River of Swords. She was already injured by Wu Chang's sneak attack, and now the situation was even worse. She was also a decisive person. She knew that she had accidentally exposed her whereabouts and was being targeted by the humans. Now that things had happened in a hurry, and she was in a disadvantageous situation, she couldn't fight the enemy. She had to protect herself first. After realizing that this place was enveloped by the formation and couldn't easily escape, she immediately changed direction and dived into the blood pool below. Just as everyone had expected, the Saint Seed chose to escape in this direction after sensing that something was wrong. As long as she dived into the blood pool and hid inside. Not to mention there were only 3 people present. Even if the elders of the Jade Blood Holy Land were to come over, they could only stare helplessly. A spot of light suddenly bloomed. That light was a lamp, and the source of the light was an ancient oil lamp. The oil lamp was held in Wei Fufeng's hand, and he was already floating above the blood pool at some point in time. The seemingly wind-extinguishable flame swayed gently, but the bizarre radiance visible to the naked eye formed a layer of dense barrier. This layer of barrier enveloped the entire blood pool tightly. When the blood-red light that the Saint Seed had transformed into struck the barrier, it couldn't break through. This oil lamp was undoubtedly the treasure that Wei Fufeng had mentioned earlier. In terms of quality, it was definitely a spirit treasure. Moreover, it was a defensive spirit treasure. Under normal circumstances, the cultivator holding the oil lamp could use the barrier of the lamp's radiance to create a protective space. As long as the lamp's flame wasn't extinguished, the protection wouldn't disappear. Although Wei Fufeng used this defensive spirit treasure here, it had the effect of blocking the light. Spirit treasures were dead, but humans were alive. The use of a spirit treasure depended on how the user used it. With the obstruction of the formation outside, and the isolation of the lamp's radiance inside, the female Saint Seed had no way out. She was completely trapped within the range of the formation. What was even more shocking was that this time, it wasn't 2 people who were dealing with her, but 4. Although the cultivation of the human who presided over the formation wasn't high, the remaining 3 were all top-notch Divine Ocean Realm cultivators. None of them were inferior to her in the slightest. She immediately realized that she was in big trouble this time. After a short moment of contemplation, she immediately made a decision. The blood-red light that she had transformed into suddenly expanded. In a split second, a huge blood river stretched across the sky. The blood in the river surged and waves rose and fell. One side of the blood river was tightly attached to the light screen of the formation. She didn't want to fight 1 against 3. That wasn't realistic, so she only wanted to escape. There were 2 ways to escape. One was to break the formation's shroud, and the other was to destroy Wei Fufeng's spirit treasure. She chose the former, not only because Lu Yi, who presided over the formation, had the weakest cultivation here, but also because Wei Fufeng's oil lamp spirit treasure wasn't easy to break through. The barrier formed by the lamp's radiance was formless and formless. Even if she wanted to break through, she wouldn't know what method to use. Moreover, The Blood Clan's blood arts were extremely corrosive. She stuck one side of the blood river to the light screen of the formation. Even if she didn't do anything, the blood river would still corrode the light screen. Sooner or later, a hole would be eroded in the light screen, and she would naturally be able to escape. In fact, she didn't have the time to activate the blood river's power to corrode the light screen of the formation. That was because the impermanence in the blood river was shuttling back and forth in search of her true body. Outside the blood river, there were long dragons of sword chi and powerful spells attacking her. She had to resist the pressure created by the 3 old seniors of the human race. She simply didn't have the spare energy to do anything else. The sword chi that was like a waterfall, and the spells that were like cannons continuously shot into the blood river. Every time, a gap would be created in the blood river. Although the blood water would quickly fill the gap, to the female holy seed, this was a drain on her strength. There was also the impermanence that couldn't be shaken off. Logically speaking, the impermanence wouldn't be able to easily lock onto the female holy seed's position while hiding in the blood river. However, the impermanence had long since gained the experience of dealing with the vampire holy seed. His initial sneak attack on the female holy seed didn't just bring about damage. He also had some special methods that allowed him to easily find the enemy's tracks in the blood river. This kind of direct confrontation with the enemy wasn't suitable for ghost cultivators, especially in the blood river. He definitely wouldn't take such a risk if he was alone. He didn't want to lose his life before killing the enemy. However, with Jian Guhong and Wei Fufeng sharing the pressure, the risk wasn't too high. As long as he was careful enough, there shouldn't be any problems. Lu Yi didn't stay idle while the 3 old seniors were in action. He was in charge of the formation. The formation he set up with the impermanence earlier wasn't just a trap formation, but also a killing formation. Look at /human great sage /. Just remember /domain /name /:. Chapter 1146. Under Lu Ye's control, the power of the killing arrays erupted. In an instant, wind, fire, lightning, and many other types of attacks rained down on the blood river, causing the waters of the blood river to churn incessantly. Lu Ye's eyes were fixed on the blood river in the air. He could clearly see that there were traces of golden light flowing in the blood river. It was as if there were many more golden light ribbons in the blood river. The red and gold complemented each other, adding a strange beauty to the blood river. And the golden light gave Lu Yi a very familiar aura. Sacred blood. He suddenly realized. There was one thing he didn't understand before. And that was why the sacred seed went deep into the blood pool to cultivate. In the blood refinement realm, the sacred seed had a unique cultivation environment compared to ordinary blood kindred. The blood pools that could be seen everywhere were the best places for them to cultivate. Therefore, the sacred seed's strength increased very quickly. It would take less than 10 years for a sacred seed to reach the peak of the divine sea realm from birth. This was an advantage that human cultivators did not have at all. Therefore, almost all of the sacred seeds in the blood refinement realm had the strength of the peak of the divine sea realm, unless they had not been born long enough. This female sacred seed was undoubtedly at the peak of the divine sea realm. Logically speaking, her level of cultivation was already the limit, and there was no room for improvement. In that case, why would she waste time going deep into the blood pool to cultivate? Lu Yi didn't understand before, but after seeing the golden ribbons in the blood river, he suddenly understood. The sacred seed's cultivation in the blood pool was not to improve her own cultivation, which had reached the limit and could not be improved. She was looking for the sacred blood hidden in the underground blood river. When she first appeared just now, she was obviously in a good mood. It seemed that this time, she had gained something. The most obvious sign was the golden ribbons in the blood river. It was a sign that the sacred blood had not been completely refined, so it appeared in the blood river. If she had enough time, she would have completely refined the newly obtained sacred blood, and this scene would not have happened. It turned out that, after becoming a sacred seed, she could still refine more sacred blood. But what was the point of doing so? According to his observation, the female sacred seed's strength did not seem to become stronger, because she refined more sacred blood. In a short period of time, Lu Yi understood one thing, and another question arose. But for Dozhan, none of that mattered. The battle in the area where the Great Formation was trapped was extremely intense. The might of sword chimes and sorcery techniques was constantly released as they attacked the Blood River without stopping. Because of the Blood River's concealment, neither Jian Guhong nor Wei Fufeng were able to accurately cause any substantial damage to the female Saint Seed. What they were doing now was only exhausting the enemy's strength and reducing the volume of the Blood River. This was the last thing the human cultivators wanted to see in a battle between the Blood Tribe and the human cultivators. Once the battle reached this point, it would become a battle of attrition. The key to success or failure was to see if the female Saint Seed could break through the restriction of the formation before the Blood River was completely consumed. If it could, she could escape with her life. If not, she would die for sure. Among the three elders who attacked, the sword cultivators and magic cultivators did not have any substantial achievements in the short term. On the other hand, the ghost cultivators Wuchang had the opportunity to cause direct damage to the enemy. This was because he shuttled through the Blood River and continuously pursued the female Saint Seed's whereabouts. But no matter how powerful he was, the drawbacks of being a ghost cultivator were difficult to eliminate. Compared to a sneak attack, confronting the enemy head-on like this was ultimately not his strong suit. Therefore, he had to be careful at all times to avoid being injured by the enemy's counterattack. From time to time, Wuchang had to escape from the Blood River to rest for a while. After all, being in the Blood River was also a huge drain on him. He had to resist the omnipresent corrosion of the Blood River, as well as the killing moves hidden in the Blood River. With the help of the Blood River's concealment, the female Saint Seed's various blood arts were extremely concealed and impossible to guard against. In a short period of 20 breaths after the start of the battle, the trapping formation was on the verge of collapse. The luster that shrouded the battlefield became dark and gloomy, especially the side of the Blood River that was close to it. It was almost as if it would break at the slightest touch. The vampire's power was simply too corrosive to an existence like the formation's light barrier. The female Saint Seed had obviously noticed this as well. She hid in the Blood River and avoided Wuchang's several attacks. Then, she activated the Blood River's power with all her might to corrode the formation's weak points. Another 3 breaths passed. Suddenly, a soft sound was heard as if something had broken. The trapping formation had broken. The female Saint Seed was overjoyed. The Blood River wriggled and was about to escape when it crashed into another trapping formation's light barrier. Since they knew about the vampire's corrosion, how could Wuchang and Lu Yi place all their hopes on a single trapping formation when they set up the formation? There was not only one trapping formation here, but a total of 3 layers. However, each layer was weaker than the previous one. This could not be helped. The formation's power was naturally reduced when the area it covered was larger. It wasn't that Lu Yi and Wuchang didn't want to set up more trapping formations, but once the area covered was too large, the formation itself would become weak. Against an opponent like the Saint Seed, it would be easily destroyed. There was no point in setting it up. 3 layers of trapping formations was the limit. The female Saint Seed's furious roar came from within the Blood River. Apparently, she was enraged by the humans' shameless actions. However, it was useless. All she did was provoke an even more violent attack. She could only rely on the geographical advantage created by her Blood River to conceal herself as much as possible, while continuing to corrode the trapping formation's light barrier. After fighting with the humans for so many years, she more or less understood their various methods. Thus, she concluded that there wouldn't be too many trapping formations like this. As long as she continued to break through them, there would be a chance for her to escape. One had to admit that this Saint Seed was female, but her combat instincts were extremely sharp in a battle of life and death. After she intentionally strengthened the Blood River's corrosive power, the second trapping formation's light barrier was destroyed in just a dozen breaths. The current situation was undoubtedly very unfavorable for the humans. It wasn't that they were in any danger, but this opportunity was too rare. If they still couldn't kill the saint seed with this, they really couldn't think of any other way to kill it. In comparison, Feng Wujiang, who had once killed a saint seed with his bare hands, was truly unparalleled in combat strength. If the situation continued to develop like this, the female saint seed would soon be able to break through the third trapping formation's light barrier and escape. Wei Fufeng was still frantically activating his technique. Since the beginning of the battle, he hadn't been stingy with his strength, and had been going all out. This was because he knew that he couldn't hold back in order to kill the saint seed. The sword light around Jian Guhong's body shook, and he pounced into the blood river. His flying sword was indeed impressive, but the existence of the blood river became his biggest constraint. This was because he couldn't easily lock onto the enemy's position. After realizing that if he couldn't end the battle quickly, this mission would definitely end in failure, he didn't hesitate anymore. How could one catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den? Although it was dangerous, this was the only way to have a chance to cause fatal injuries to the enemy. Wu Chang was ultimately inferior to him in terms of fighting head-on. The moment Jian Guhong entered the blood river, the pressure on Wu Chang's side was greatly reduced. He coordinated with Jian Guhong while transmitting voice transmissions to the female saint seed. In a short period of time, the enemy was actually in a fluster. With Lu Yi activating the killing formation, and Wei Fufeng continuously reducing the volume of her blood river, the female saint seed would surely be eliminated if there was enough time. However, what everyone lacked at the moment was time. The second trapping formation's light barrier had already been broken, and only the last was left. Once this layer was broken, the human side would no longer have the power to restrain the enemy. At that time, the vampires would be able to escape in the blink of an eye, and this mission would end in failure. Judging from the speed at which the third trapping formation's light barrier was dimming, this would happen in just a few breaths' time. At this critical moment, Lu Yi soared into the sky resolutely, abandoning his task of presiding over the formation and charging headfirst into the blood river. Seeing this scene, Wei Fufeng had no idea what he was going to do. However, this was a critical moment in the battle, and even if he felt that it was extremely risky for Lu Yi to charge into the blood river, he didn't have the energy to stop him. As for Wu Chang and Jian Guhong, they didn't notice anything, because they were inside the blood river. Lu Yi activated his blood art as soon as he entered the blood river. Blood mist and spirit energy pervaded his body, converging into another blood river in the blink of an eye. However, in the next instant his expression froze. This was because when he activated the blood art, he felt a very peculiar and clear suppressive force from the blood river around him. The existence of this suppressive force caused the volume of the blood river technique to be reduced by about half compared to its normal state. This kind of suppression was extremely terrifying. He immediately understood that this was the vampire's bloodline suppression. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Along the way, he had used his bloodline suppression to plant soul manipulation divine runes on many divine ocean realm vampires, turning them into his blood slaves. He hadn't thought that the tables would turn, and he would be suppressed one day. If he was a real member of the blood race, his strength would be greatly reduced under such suppression. He might even be in awe, or even bow down to Yi Futian. Those blood race members in the divine sea realm usually behaved like this when they were suppressed by him. However, he wasn't a true vampire after all. He had only refined a drop of sacred blood and obtained some of its holiness. He was still a human. He hadn't felt this kind of suppression before, because he hadn't activated his blood art. Now that he did, the suppression was obvious. What Lu Yi didn't understand was how he could still be suppressed by his bloodline after refining the sacred blood and obtaining its holiness. Was there a difference in the bloodline of the sacred seed? Look at /human great sage / just / remember / domain / name /:. Chapter 1147. Lu Yi couldn't help but think of the golden band of light in the female divine seed's blood river. According to his previous speculation, the female divine seed had gained more divine blood in the underground blood river this time. She just didn't have time to completely refine it, So there was an external manifestation after activating the blood river technique. If that was the case, wouldn't it mean that the more divine blood one refined, the more noble their bloodline would be? Because the female divine seed had refined more divine blood than him, it could form a bloodline suppression on him. Although it was just speculation, and there was no actual evidence, Lu Yi felt that it was probably the truth. If Lu Yi had more contact with divine seeds, he might have discovered this long ago. However, the only divine seed he had come into contact with in the blood-refining realm was Lan Qiyue. At that time, Lan Qiyue's strength wasn't high enough, so she didn't know these secrets that only belonged to divine seeds. Lu Yi naturally didn't know either. It wasn't until he returned to the blood-refining realm that he found out that he had the ability to suppress ordinary blood kindred's bloodline. As for the eldest senior brother and many other elders, although they had been in the blood-refining realm for hundreds of years, they had only ever fought with divine seeds. They knew that divine seeds had absolute control over ordinary blood kindred. How could they know that there was a difference in bloodline between divine seeds? This caused some twists and turns in his plan. Looking into it, it was due to the lack of information. The reason he rushed out at this time and crashed into the blood river was that he had planned to activate the blood river technique and surround the female divine seed's blood river. This way, the geographical advantage that the female divine seed had created would be gone. With his blood river surrounding her, it wouldn't be so easy for the female divine seed to escape. It wouldn't be so important whether the trapping array could be maintained or not. It was undeniable that the volume of the blood river that the female divine seed had activated was very large, especially since she needed to use the blood river to hide her body. Naturally, she couldn't hold back, so her blood river technique should have been pushed to the limit. Lu Ye's blood river was also very large, but in comparison, it was still inferior to the female divine seed's blood river. After all, the difference in cultivation level was obvious. In terms of volume, the enemy's blood river was stronger. However, in this short period of time, Jian Guhong and Wei Fufeng kept attacking, and Lu Yi himself had activated many killing arrays. This caused the volume of the female divine seed's blood river to shrink, and it was inferior to Lu Ye's blood river. If nothing unexpected happened, Lu Yi would be able to complete his plan by using the blood river technique. However, due to the natural suppression of his bloodline, his blood river had shrunk greatly, making it impossible for him to complete his original plan. In battle, there were always accidents, and it was impossible for everything to go smoothly. Although Lu Yi was young, he had experienced many battles of life and death, and had long since developed a tenacious character. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, he made a prompt decision and spread his own blood river over his opponent's blood river, creating a barrier between his opponent's blood river and the light barrier. His thinking was very simple. Since he couldn't complete his plan, he would stall for time. If he wanted to stall for time, he had to ensure that the last layer of the light barrier was not broken. The separation formed by his own blood river was enough to accomplish this. Within the blood river, the female holy seed exclaimed, "Holy seed? No, you're a human." At this moment, she was incomparably shocked, because in the history of the blood-refining world, there had never been such a thing. There had never been such a ridiculous thing as a human possessing a holy seed. Humans were the vampire race's food, and there weren't many divine sea realm cultivators in the entire blood refinement world before the old seniors of the 9 provinces arrived. Even these divine sea realm cultivators were blood thralls bred by the vampires themselves. Even vampires needed great fortune to become a holy seed, to say nothing of the human race. That was why she couldn't understand how a holy seed could appear among humans. Moreover, this holy seed of the human race had given her a great chance of escaping. Obstructed by Lu Ye's blood river, she could no longer erode the 3rd layer of the light barrier. It was clearly on the verge of breaking, but she just couldn't find a way to do it. In her fury, she gnashed her teeth and shouted, "You know nothing about the holy seed's power." This was unavoidable. An inheritance was an inheritance, but many things couldn't be understood without personal experience. Lu Yi did his utmost to resist the fusion of his opponent's blood river, but it was to no avail. What made him feel fortunate was that this fusion wasn't a robbery. In other words, speaking of which, the female holy seed had the dominant power over the fusion of the blood river. He could resist, but he couldn't. That was quite helpless. He felt like he was being forced. The rivers of blood gradually merged together, and the partition that Lu Yi had constructed with a flash of inspiration also lost its effect. The season equals suppressing light curtain, which was already dim and gloomy, became even more unstable, and was in a state where it could break at any time. At this point, the battle had entered its final stage. Hong and the others were still exerting their power, but it seemed that they couldn't stop the enemy from escaping. At this moment, the female holy seed suddenly found something amiss. Lu Yi seemed to have completely given up on resisting, allowing her to merge with his blood river. Not only did he give up resisting, he even intentionally merged with it. In the blink of an eye, the two blood rivers merged into one, indistinguishable from each other. Lu Yi clearly sensed the three figures fighting fiercely in the blood river. They were basically in a state of one fleeing and two chasing. The female holy seed was fleeing in the blood river, while Jian Guhong and Wu Chang were in hot pursuit. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Yi immediately felt that his blood river was showing signs of merging with the other's blood river. And this merging was out of his control. Because the blood arts of the blood breeds were of the same origin, they could often form an extremely exquisite combination. This was especially true for the blood river art. The blood river art performed by different blood breeds could easily merge together, turning into a larger blood river. With the strongest blood breeds leading, the other blood breeds could follow, and they could unleash a stronger power. It could be said that the blood river art was unique to the blood breeds. It was a very special formation that allowed them to join forces at will. Of course, there was a limit to this kind of cooperation. Everything depended on the strength of the blood river that was merged with the strongest blood breeds. The stronger the blood breeds were, the more blood breeds could merge, and vice versa. What Lu Yi encountered at this moment was the fusion of the blood river art. Because her bloodline was one level higher than Lu Ye's, even if Lu Yi resisted when he sensed that something was wrong, his blood river would quickly merge with the other's blood river. And because her bloodline was stronger, the female holy seed had a greater ability to dominate the merged blood river. Things had become a little awkward. Lu Ye's original intention was to help Jian Guhong and the others, but in the end, he ended up getting himself involved. This was something he didn't expect. He had received all the inheritance of the blood breeds, and he wasn't completely ignorant of the fusion of the blood river art. But he really didn't expect this to happen. Just as the female holy seed said, he was somewhat lacking in the power of the holy seed. Although the female holy seed had an absolute advantage in the fusion of the blood river, she was completely at a disadvantage in the internal battle of the blood river. Moreover, she was injured by Wu Chang's sneak attack when she first appeared. At this moment, there were several more wounds on her body, which was obviously the work of Jian Guhong. There was no other reason. Those wounds were filled with sword qi, and even the powerful recovery ability of the blood breed's holy seed couldn't heal them in a short time. It was at this moment that Lu Yi activated the power of the talent tree. In an instant, roots invisible to the naked eye extended out from the entire blood river, madly devouring everything around them. The female holy seed realized that something was wrong when Lu Yi took the initiative to merge with the blood river. But she didn't know what was wrong. Until now, the moment the talent tree's devouring power was activated, she screamed, and her voice was full of panic because she clearly sensed that her power was rapidly flowing away. Countless invisible black holes seemed to have appeared inside the blood river, and these invisible black holes were the source of her power loss. She didn't know what was going on at all. She only knew that all these changes happened after Lu Yi changed from resisting to taking the initiative. In a short time she made a decision. Her figure flickered, and she pounced toward Lu Yi in the blood river. She could sense Lu Yi's position, and Lu Yi could of course sense her position. After their blood rivers merged, there was no way for them to hide their whereabouts in the blood river. If she attacked, Lu Yi would naturally dodge. Although his strength was not weak now, Lu Yi had no interest in fighting a holy seed. That was not courage but stupidity. Therefore, when he sensed the enemy's intention, he moved his body and pounced toward Jian Guhong and Wuchang. Before the female holy seed could reach him, she was blocked by the combined efforts of the two old seniors. Smack! A soft sound was heard. The third layer of the trapping array finally broke. At this point, there was no longer any obstacle that could stop the enemy from escaping. However, the female holy seed could no longer escape. She fused with Lu Ye's blood river. It seemed like a stroke of genius, but it was actually digging her own grave and leading the wolf into the house. Because before she dealt with Lu Yi, she couldn't move the blood river at all. It was impossible to drag blood river with him. Even if he tried to force it, his speed wouldn't be that fast. In this situation, it was as if she and Lu Yi were just ordinary mortals. She wanted to run, but Lu Ye's entire body was hanging on her. How could she run fast? If she wanted to recover her original speed, she could only shake Lu Yi off. In other words, she had to separate their blood rivers again. Of course, she could also abandon her own blood river. However, if she did that, she would lose not only a huge amount of blood essence and vitality, but also the holy blood she had refined before. She would lose her status as a holy seed. This was something she absolutely could not tolerate. Moreover, if she really abandoned her blood river, she would be able to get rid of Jian Guhong and Wuchang. Chang's pursuit. At that time, her vitality would be greatly damaged, and she would only die faster. She realized this problem, and did the same. She could only hurry up. Only by separating their blood rivers could she have a chance to escape. Look at the great sage of human Tao, and remember the name of the domain. Chapter 1148. But how could such a thing be so easy? The female holy seed had been so domineering when she forcibly merged with Lu Ye's blood river before. But now she was in a difficult situation. She was separating the blood river, while Lu Yi continued to merge with it. Although the speed of merging was not as fast as her separation, it still greatly delayed the efficiency of her separation. At this rate, if she wanted to completely separate from the blood river, she would not be able to do so within 2 to 4 hours. 2 to 4 hours, she wouldn't be able to hold on. What was even more fatal was that the power in her blood river was rapidly draining away. Because of the loss of the blood river's power, the speed at which she was separating the two blood rivers was also becoming slower and slower. She finally knew that she had reached the end of her road. And the cause of all this was not Jian Guhong, or the others she regarded as strong enemies, but rather a mere fifth-order divine sea realm human. How ironic! As time passed, Lu Yi clearly felt that the bloodline suppression he was suffering was constantly weakening. If the previous suppression was like carrying a mountain on his back, then at this moment, the weight of that mountain was rapidly decreasing. The reason for all this was the devouring and refining of his talent tree. The two blood rivers had completely merged, and the talent tree's devouring power was everywhere. The blood river was not only filled with the female holy seed's blood essence and vitality, but also with the saint blood she had obtained previously, but had not completely refined. Now all of this was benefiting Lu Yi. The most obvious sign was that the golden ribbon of light in the blood river was rapidly decreasing, which was undoubtedly being devoured and refined by the talent tree. As a result, because more saint blood was refined, the gap between their bloodlines would shrink, and the bloodline suppression would naturally weaken. Lu Yi was like a fish in water, while the female holy seed was like a cornered beast. She did nothing but focus on chasing Lu Yi through the blood river. At this point, she already knew that there was no way she could survive. 1 against 3, she couldn't defeat the top masters of the human race, nor could she escape. All that awaited her was death. But before that, she still had one more thing to do. That was to get rid of Lu Yi. A human had actually become a saint seed. This was something that had never happened in the blood-refining realm. If this person was still alive, he would definitely pose a great threat to the other saint seeds in the future. For the future of the blood race, for the sake of those saint seeds, she had to kill Lu Yi. The human cultivators of the 9 regions didn't lack blood, and neither did the blood race. One must know that this race could improve themselves by hunting each other for blood crystals. Before the appearance of the Jade Blood Holy Land, the internal strife of the blood race was even more serious than that of the 9 prefectures. The Blessed Lands, Grotto Heavens, and even the Holy Lands had always been in a state of constant warfare. Even now, in the northern territory of the blood-refining world, far away from the Jade Blood Holy Land, this situation had not changed. It was only because of the appearance of the Jade Blood Holy Land in the southern territory of the blood refinement realm that the blood race would temporarily abandon their opposition and unite against the Jade Blood Holy Land under the call of many holy seeds. External threats had always been the only way to promote internal unity. This was true in 9 regions, and it was also true in the blood refining world. The female holy seed had the concept of self-sacrifice, but what she wanted to do was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. How clever was Lu Yi? Since he was aware of her intentions, how could he foolishly stand in place and wait for her to kill him? Therefore, a comical scene soon appeared in the huge blood river. Lu Yi took the lead and flew at the forefront, while the female holy seed chased after him. Jian Guhong and Wu Chang chased after the female holy seed. At the same time, Lu Yi was also closing in on Jian Guhong and Wu Chang. This formed a strange circle that looked like they were chasing each other, and the scene was spectacular. Outside the blood river, Wei Fufeng was constantly urging his spells to attack the blood river. The female holy seed's injuries gradually became serious. She was focused on chasing after Lu Yi under the watchful eyes of Jian Guhong and Wu Chang. So naturally, she had to pay a price. She thought that killing a 5th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator would be easy, but Lu Yi was running too fast. She had never seen a 5th-order blood race cultivator who could run so fast, unless he used his blood escape technique. Coupled with the continuous improvement of Lu Yi's bloodline, her plan became more and more difficult to achieve. As time passed, the aura of the female saint seed continued to weaken. That was the result of the accumulation of injuries, and it was mainly caused by Jian Guhong. The injuries caused by a top-notch swordsman like him were not something that could be easily suppressed and healed. Every single injury was left with fierce sword intent. Her expression began to distort, and her eyes were filled with unwillingness and anger. However, it was of no use, until a certain moment, when the female holy seed, who had already lost all hope, suddenly saw Lu Yi stop in front of her. She didn't know why Lu Yi did this, but this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, she instantly sped up and pounced in front of Lu Yi. She stretched out her hand and clawed at Lu Yi's head. She could almost foresee the scene of her claw breaking Lu Yi's head. On the opposite side, Lu Yi's eyes were slightly lowered as he pressed his hand on the hilt of the mountain coiling saber, his spirit chi surging wildly. The reason why he stopped was naturally not to court death, but because he didn't know what kind of twists and turns he would have to go through to kill this enemy if he continued to chase. He didn't want to delay any longer. After all, this was the blood-refining world. The battle here was so fierce that it would spread far and wide. If a blood race master came over, it might cause some trouble. Therefore, he had to end this battle as soon as possible. He was naturally no match for the holy seed at her peak. But at this moment, the enemy was seriously injured, and it was hard to say how much strength she could exert. Even so, he didn't think he could be her opponent. But if he just had to delay her a little, it shouldn't be a problem. Jian Guhong and Wu Chang were chasing after him. As long as he could delay them a little, with these 2 old seniors' grasp of the situation, there was a high chance they could win. If he wanted to win quickly, he naturally had to take some risks. This was the reason why he suddenly turned around and stood still. He didn't summon the Dragon Emperor, mainly because Lu Yi wanted to see how big the gap was between him and the Holy Seed. When the female Holy Seed stretched out her claw, Lu Yi also unsheathed his mountain coiling saber. He didn't use any saber technique, just a simple slash. It was a slash with all his strength, because only in this way could he clearly measure the gap between them. The moment Lu Yi unsheathed his saber, the female Holy Seed noticed his extraordinariness. If Lu Yi was a rabbit that had been chased to the ends of the earth before, then he was now a roaring lion. An extremely domineering and aggressive aura rushed out along with the slash of his saber. Suddenly, The female holy seed felt like she wasn't about to kill a fifth order, but a ninth order. It wasn't until this moment that she realized she had underestimated Lu Ye's ability. This human's strength couldn't be underestimated at all. He could exert strength beyond his actual realm. However, she had no way out. She could only give it her all and concentrate all her strength on her claw. Her sharp nails bloomed with blood-red light, not inferior to any human spirit artifact in terms of lethality. The moment the saber and the bloody hand collided, they both felt an irresistible force coming from the front. Although the Blood Clan couldn't use treasures like spirit tools or magic tools, due to their cultivation of blood arts and their rich corrosive power, each of them could be said to be a natural combination of body cultivation and magic cultivation. Because one's chi, blood, and life force were strong enough, one could temper one's body through long years of cultivation. Because of their bloodline inheritance, they could easily perform all kinds of strange blood techniques. This was especially true for blood race holy seeds. In terms of physique, only a peak spirit sea realm cultivator like Meng Jia could compare with them. This was the reason why Lu Yi felt so pressured. His opponent was a top-notch body cultivator. However, this body cultivator's injuries were more serious. The female holy seed also felt some pressure. The activation of the heavy pressure inscriptions on the Pan Mountain saber and Lu Ye's own strength were the reasons for this pressure. After devouring the insect queen's vitality in the insect race's great secret realm, Lu Ye's physique had been greatly improved. He had always wanted to know how strong his physique had become, but he hadn't had a good chance. Until now. In an instant, the two of them competed with each other in terms of strength. It ended with a clash. A huge force collided, and a shockwave erupted. The place where the two figures stood was blasted open, creating an empty space in the surging blood. The blood chi in Tin Brain's chest was turbulent, and his internal organs were affected, but his eyes were still as calm as before. The female blood race holy seed let out a muffled groan. The moment her palm collided with the Pan Mountain saber, a cut appeared on her palm. The injury wasn't serious enough to cause the holy seed's beautiful face to pale, but the spiritual slash that accompanied the injury had caught her off guard. The soul-slashing saber's characteristics were always so unpredictable. In the next moment, Lu Ye's calmness disappeared. He hurriedly raised his sword. Female holy seed retreat. That was because the female holy seed's body suddenly emitted an abnormal fluctuation, and her eyes flashed with a determined brilliance. Lu Yi immediately understood what she was going to do. The subsequent damage could also be used to detonate the blood essence in her body. This was a secret technique of self-destruction, and it was quite powerful. Jian Guhong and Wu Chang were both very smart, and they were both experienced fighters. The moment the female holy seed released a dangerous aura, they realized what she was going to do. Wu Chang ran faster than anyone else, rushing out of the blood river in a puff of smoke. Jian Guhong slashed down and retreated as well. The sword light flashed past the female holy seed's neck. This was definitely a decapitation strike. Lu Yi turned around and collided with the enemy, creating an opportunity. Jian Guhong didn't give up. Even without this strike, the female holy seed would still self-destruct. But when facing an enemy, it was better to kill with one's own hands. Chapter 1149. In the Blood River, there was nothing wrong with the female holy seed's neck, but in reality, her head had already been separated from her body. It was only because Jian Guhong had attacked too quickly that nothing could be seen from the outside. Even so, her aura had risen to an extremely dangerous level in an instant. She gave off the feeling that she was a balloon that had been stretched to its limit and could explode at any time. The activation of the blood explosion technique did not end because of her death. Instead, it continued to be activated. Wu Chang could retreat, so could Jian Guhong, but Lu Yi could not. The blood river had not been retracted, so where could he retreat to? Faced with such a crisis, he could only frantically urge the blood river's power to squeeze in the enemy's direction. With a loud bang, the violent power surged. The female holy seed turned into a cloud of blood mist and scattered everywhere. Wherever she was, blood waves surged, and the aftermath spread out fiercely. This was the result of Lu Yi using the blood river to suppress it. If he did not suppress it, the power of the explosion would be even more terrifying. Outside the blood river, Jian Guhong and the other two looked at the twisting blood river. They could clearly sense that the female holy seed's aura had disappeared. They could not help but sigh. Killing a holy seed was really not easy. Moreover, this time, if Lu Yi had not helped and used the blood river to restrict some of the enemy's abilities, it would have been hard to say whether they could have killed her or not. There was a high chance that they would have ended in failure. Once the enemy used the blood escape technique, Jian Guhong would be the only one who could chase after her. Wu Chang and Wei Fufeng could only eat the dust behind. In comparison, Feng Wujiang, who had once single-handedly killed a holy seed, was indeed much stronger than them. Wu Chang was not too happy. He only looked nervously at the wriggling blood river and shouted, "Lu Yi, are you still alive?" He was sure that Lu Yi was not dead because his aura was still there. The blood river was still there, but Wu Chang was not sure. Lu Yi had been injured by the enemy's explosion. If he was injured, how serious his injuries would be. Soon, Lu Yi's voice came from the blood river. "I'm fine. Seniors, please protect me for a while." Now that the enemy was dead, he had to find a way to retrieve his blood river. Under normal circumstances, this was not difficult. If he could use the blood river, he could naturally retrieve it. But now this blood river was not pure. It was the product of the fusion between himself and the female saint seed. Lu Yi needed to refine or separate all the parts that did not belong to him. This was not a difficult thing for him to do. What surprised him was that after the female blood breed chose to self-destruct, there was a drop of golden blood left where she originally stood. The golden blood exuded a very special aura. It was a drop of saint blood. Moreover, the volume of this drop of saint blood was several times larger than the one Lu Yi had obtained before. The female holy seed's holy blood was divided into two parts. One part had yet to be refined. When Lu Yi activated the blood river, this part was mixed in with the blood river. Golden ribbons of light appeared, but this part had been swallowed and refined by Lu Yi's talent tree. This was only a very small portion of the holy blood that the female holy seed had obtained. Most of it had already been completely refined and integrated into her bloodline. This was the drop of saint blood that Lu Yi was looking at. He did not expect that after the holy seed died, the holy blood that it had refined would be preserved and not disappear with the holy seed's death. Such a large drop of saint blood was much larger than the amount that Lu Yi had obtained before. He understood that it was because of the difference in the amount of saint blood that there was a difference in bloodline between them. This was why the female holy seed could suppress his bloodline. If he was really a blood breed, even if he had a holy seed, he would not have much power to fight back. However, he was a human and bloodline suppression could only be reflected in blood arts. In other words, if Lu Yi did not use blood arts, bloodline suppression would have no effect on him. This was also why Lu Yi did not feel bloodline suppression before. However, if he used blood arts, the feeling would be very obvious. In this way, there were actually differences between holy seeds. It was just that the human side had never known about this. After all, this was a secret between holy seeds, and no one would casually spread this matter. Even the human powerhouses of the Jade Blood Holy Land and the Blood Breed had been fighting for so many years. No one could detect this. If that was the case, then as long as he could obtain enough saint blood, wouldn't he be able to suppress all holy seeds? Lu Yi suddenly realized that he seemed to have discovered something incredible. 1. After a short while, the blood river withdrew, and the drop of saint blood was also absorbed into Lu Yi's body. The energy contained within this thing was too great, and it could not be refined in a short time. It would not be too late to slowly refine it later. Once he completely refined this drop of saint blood, Lu Yi believed that the next time he encountered a holy seed, he would not be in such a sorry state. At the very least, there should not be many holy seeds that could suppress him when using blood arts. Saint blood was not something that could be obtained casually. The fact that the female holy seed had been able to obtain it this time was probably due to luck. Wu Chang returned in a flash. "Good boy, if it weren't for you this time, I'm afraid the three of us would have returned empty-handed." Speaking of which, how did you use the blood race's blood arts? To tell the truth, Wu Chang had been given a fright when Lu Yi had activated the blood river. He had thought that another blood race expert had charged into the battlefield, but when he realized it was actually Lu Yi, he was a bit confused. It was just that the battle had been too intense for him to ask about it. Lu Yi replied honestly, "Last time, when I was cultivating in the Blood Sea beside the Saint Island, I was lucky enough to refine a drop of saint blood. I obtained the blood race's bloodline inheritance, allowing me to use blood arts." Jian Guhong and the others had no idea what saint blood was. This was their first time hearing about it, but from Lu Ye's words, they had a general idea. Then a saint blood human can also refine it? Wu Chang clicked his tongue in wonder. At their level of cultivation, there was no way for them to improve any further. Therefore, they were very interested in the strange powers outside of their own cultivation system. Stones from other mountains could be used to polish jade. Perhaps they could find the path to the upper realm through all kinds of crooked methods. Humans can refine it, but seniors, it's best that you don't try it rashly. After refining the saint's blood, you will become a member of the blood clan. I once knew a human girl who refined the saint's blood clan's saint seed. Then how come you're fine? Wu Chang didn't understand. Lu Yi said, "I have a way to neutralize some of the saint blood's evil nature. I can maintain my human body." Wu Chang didn't say anything specific, and Wu Chang didn't ask. He only nodded, extinguishing any thoughts of refining a drop of saint blood. Although he wanted to pursue a higher realm and cultivation base, he couldn't accept losing his human identity and becoming a blood race holy seed. Seniors, now that this matter is over, Junior needs to continue on my way. Wasting half a month's time to kill a holy seed was worth it. At the very least, Lu Yi had figured out some of the holy seed's secrets. He had also discovered a way to quickly kill a holy seed. This should be of some help to the future situation. The saint seeds were the most troublesome things to deal with in the blood refinement realm. Although there weren't many of them, there were still quite a few of them. Even Jian Guhong and the others didn't have any hope of killing them in a one-on-one fight. Even if they worked together, they still might not succeed. As long as the saint seeds in the blood refinement realm were not eliminated, the race war between humans and blood race holy seeds could not be considered a victory. If he hadn't shouldered the task of placing the Tianji pillar, Lu Yi would have gone deep into the underground blood river to search for more saint blood. However, since they had to place the Tianji pillar and ensure that the army of cultivators from the 9 regions would advance in the future, they had to delay for half a month. Killing a holy seed was still quite cost-effective. At the very least, Lu Yi had figured out some of the secrets of the holy seed, and had also found a way to quickly kill the holy seed, which should be of some help to the future situation. The saint seeds were the most troublesome things to deal with in the blood refinement realm. Although there weren't many of them, there were still quite a few of them in the vast blood refinement realm. Even Jian Guhong and the others didn't have any hope of killing them in a one-on-one fight. Even if they worked together, they might not succeed. As long as the saint seeds in the blood refinement realm were not eliminated, the race war between humans and blood race holy seeds could not be considered a victory. If he hadn't shouldered the task of placing the Tianji pillar, Lu Yi would have gone deep into the underground blood river to search for more saint blood. But since he had to place the Tianji pillar and ensure the future invasion of the 9 states cultivators into the blood refinement realm, this matter could only be temporarily put aside. It wouldn't be too late to do it again if there was still time after the Tianji pillar was placed. Senior Wu Chang, I'll leave those Tianji pillars to you. Lu Yi turned to look at Wu Chang. Wu Chang grinned. Don't worry, it will be properly arranged. Then this junior will take his leave first. Lu Yi left and took Lu Chang, who was not far away, with him as he continued north. After watching him leave, Wu Chang also disappeared quickly. Jian Guhong and Wei Fufeng left together. In the blink of an eye, the bustling blood pool became empty. Not even the slightest trace of a great battle was left. Because this great battle had taken place in the blood river, no one would have thought that a saint seed of the blood race had been killed in this place. Wu Chang took half of the Tianji pillar, so time was not so tight. Moreover, Lu Yi didn't have to take the zigzag route to place the Tianji pillar. Now he could go north in a straight line and spend less time on the way. While hurrying, Lu Yi also refined the drop of saint blood that he had absorbed into his body. He found that as the refinement progressed, his understanding of blood arts became deeper and deeper. Apart from that, his strength also increased slightly. This was normal because the saint blood contained an enormous amount of energy. Refining it like this would naturally improve Lu Ye's foundation. Apart from that, there didn't seem to be any special benefits. But this was the result from the standpoint of the human race. It was different from the standpoint of the blood race. Just the fact that the bloodline had become more noble was enough to make the saint seeds scramble like ducks. Lu Yi vaguely understood one thing, and that was why there weren't many saint seeds in the blood refinement realm. Logically speaking, even if it was difficult for a saint seed to be born, the blood refinement realm had existed for countless years. After many years of accumulation, this number should have been accumulated. But in fact, the number of saint seeds in the entire blood refinement realm probably didn't exceed 100. It was very likely that it was a battle between saint seeds. The saint seed with a lower bloodline was killed by the saint seed with a higher bloodline, and its saint blood was stolen. Chapter 1150. Take the female holy seed that Lu Yi and Jian Guhong killed, for example. The amount of holy blood she had was several times greater than Lu Ye's. This wasn't just the result of her searching the blood river underground. It was very likely that she had killed other holy seeds, and more than one at that. Now that Lu Yi had gotten all of it, he was very happy. As usual, he continued to search for suitable grotto heavens to place the Tianji pillar, while refining the holy blood in his body. As he refined the holy blood, Lu Yi could exert more and more pressure on ordinary blood breeds. Those divine sea realm celestial lords in grotto heavens couldn't resist at all. They could only obediently allow the soul manipulation runes to be planted in them and become soul slaves. A few days later, Lu Yi finished refining the sacred blood. Lu Yi silently sensed that his understanding of blood arts had risen to a whole new level. His strength had also increased by a lot. In addition to the invisible improvement of his bloodline, there didn't seem to be any other benefits. In that case, refining more holy blood wouldn't have much of an effect on the holy seed's strength. They were all at the peak of the divine sea realm and couldn't get any stronger. However, the pursuit of improving their bloodline was probably the holy seed's instinctive desire. After parting with Jian Guhong and the others for 2 months, Lu Ye's Tianji pillar was more or less settled. His mission to return to the blood refinement realm was basically complete. He believed that Wuchang's progress wasn't far behind either. Now he just needed to wait for the opportunity to arrive. When the time came, the army of the 9 states would be able to use the Tianji pillar to teleport directly into the blood refinement realm and catch the blood breeds off guard. But before that, Lu Yi had to meet someone. Songnan village was the place where Lu Yi first came to the blood refinement realm. Back then, he and Dao Shisan were taken in by the village chief. It was also from here that Lu Yi slowly understood the blood refinement realm. Lu Yi didn't intend to revisit this place. He just happened to pass by this place. Once he arrived at Songnan village, he wouldn't be far from his final destination. Flying through the air, Lu Yi casually looked down and suddenly paused. It was daytime. At this time, the villagers of Songnan village were working in the spirit fields. A few strong youths would go into the mountains to hunt, while the children would gather together to play. Therefore, during the day, Songnan village was relatively lively. Only at night would everyone close their doors and not go out. But ever since Lu Yi came to the blood refinement realm a few years ago, and secretly took control of the nearby vampire forces, the humans of Songnan village no longer needed to be alarmed, because not a single vampire came to hunt for blood food. But at this moment, Lu Yi looked around and found that the number of people working around Songnan village was not as many as he remembered. Many fields had become barren and overgrown with weeds. Even the children playing in the village during the day were nowhere to be seen. The entire Songnan village had clearly lost a lot of people. This caused him to frown. After silently observing for a moment, He had some guesses in his heart. He originally planned to go directly to Thousand Flow Blessed Land, because he left Thousand Flow Blessed Land from there. Lan Qiyue was there. But now it seemed that if his guess was correct, going directly to Thousand Flow Blessed Land was not a good choice. He had to first investigate the nearby situation and gather some information. As this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Yi turned around and led Ruo Luchang towards the Bright Moon Cave. Soon, they arrived at Bright Moon Cave. A few years ago, the cave master here was called Sun Miaozhu. She was killed by Lu Yi and Dao Shisan, and later replaced by a soul slave called Zhang Zhulai. However, this guy's strength was not high. Moreover, as Lu Yi gathered the surrounding vampire forces, his subordinates gradually became stronger. Zhang Zhulai alone was not enough. In order to quickly obtain powerful strength, he took the risk to cultivate in the blood pool. In the end, he failed. After occupying Thousand Flow Blessed Land, and Lan Qiyue returned as a holy seed, Lu Yi completely retreated behind the scenes. Now that he thought about it, it seemed like it happened yesterday, but in fact it had been several years. Even though Lu Yi was not old, he could not help but feel that time had passed. A holy seed's strength increased very quickly. When Lu Yi left Thousand Flow Blessed Land, Lan Qiyue's strength was not too strong. But now, she should have advanced to Divine Sea. Lu Yi came to Bright Moon Cave to inquire about Lan Qiyue's whereabouts. He vaguely felt that something must have happened to her. Otherwise, Songnan village would be in a state of peace and prosperity, and would not have become so desolate. Lan Qiyue was a holy seed. Even if ordinary blood breeds had higher cultivation than her, they would not pose too much of a threat to her. For something to happen to her, it must be the intervention of another holy seed. If it was before, Lu Yi would not have understood why there would be conflicts between the holy seeds. However, after experiencing the great battle 2 months ago, how could he not understand? To the holy seeds, Lan Qiyue, who had just become a holy seed, had not yet fully matured. She was the target of any holy seed. It was very likely that her existence was targeted by another holy seed. Of course, whether it was true or not, he still had to inquire. Bright Moon Cave was the lowest level of blood breeds gathering place in the blood refining realm. Above it were blessed lands, grotto heavens, and holy lands. The strength of the blood breeds gathered here was naturally not that high. Under Lu Ye's signal, Lu Chang took the lead and rushed straight into Bright Moon Cave. There were blood breeds on guard outside the cave. They watched Lu Chang barge in and felt his divine sea realm aura. They immediately felt uneasy and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Sky Sovereign." Lu Chang was submissive in front of Lu Yi, but he was a divine sea realm cultivator. He only had this kind of bearing. Facing the respect of the blood breeds on guard, he only snorted softly. "Where is the cave master?" His voice was not loud, but along with it came the pressure of a divine sea realm cultivator. In an instant, there was a commotion in the cave. Figures of blood breeds rushed out from the depths of the cave. Lu Yi stood behind Lu Dianachin. She became pregnant with the E-scripture. At this moment she was miserable. Miley screamed miserably. She was constantly being tortured. The blood breeds, who were venting their bestial desires on her body, sensed Lu Ye's aura. He wanted to be lustful. He didn't even have time to put on his clothes properly. However, a saber light came right at him. The saber light cut through the middle of his body, as if it was cutting tofu. It was accompanied by a soft sound of poochie. The blood breed's corpse was split into two and fell to the ground. The remaining blood breeds who had gathered were all furious. Even though Lu Ye's divine sea realm strength was clearly visible when he attacked, to the blood race, humans were nothing more than food no matter how strong they were. They were the blood race's blood slaves. It had always been the blood race killing humans. Since when was it the humans' turn to kill the blood race? What greeted them was more saber light. In the blink of an eye, only the strongest of the dozen blood breeds who had run over was left. At this moment, his expression had changed from anger to shock. His gaze moved away from Lu Yi and fixed on Lu Chang. In his opinion, Lu Yi must be Lu Chang's blood slave. Lu Yi must have received Lu Chang's instructions if he had the guts to do this. In other words, this strange sky sovereign wanted to kill their clansmen. He didn't know how he had offended this sky sovereign. Suddenly he was terrified. His clothes were drenched in sweat, and his legs began to weaken. He wanted to beg for mercy, but he didn't know what to say. Lu Yi said, "Who's in charge of Ganlu blessed land now?" The blood breeds looked at Lu Chang with fear. Lu Chang's face was gloomy. "Answer whatever I ask. If you dare to hide anything, I'll make you wish you were dead." The blood breeds immediately replied with a trembling voice, "It's Song Qianjun Song Fuju." Lu Yi thought for a moment. He had never heard of this name. It should be a blood breed he had never seen before. "Where's Lan Qiyue? Holy Master Qiyu?" The blood breeds were stunned. He didn't know why a human like Lu Yi wanted to know about the holy seed, but he still replied honestly, "Holy Master Qiyu was expelled more than a year ago." "Who did it?" "It was Holy Master Emohai." As expected, just as Lu Yi thought, only the blood breeds, who were also holy seeds, could pose a threat to Lan Qiyue. This holy seed called Emohai probably had his eyes on Lan Qiyue. He wanted to kill her to obtain the holy blood in Lan Qiyue's body to improve his own bloodline. Lu Yi didn't know how strong this holy master Emohai was, but he was definitely stronger than Lan Qiyue, who was a new holy seed. Moreover, their bloodlines couldn't be compared. Once Lan Qiyue fought with him, she would definitely not be his opponent. Being expelled was the best result. He was slightly relieved. What Lu Yi was most afraid of was Lan Qiyue being killed. This was very likely. Lan Qiyue was weaker than others, and her bloodline wasn't as noble as others. Once she fought with other holy seeds, Lan Qiyue would definitely be unlucky. Now that he knew she didn't die, Lu Yi was slightly relieved. "Do you know where Lan Qiyue is now?" This question was probably useless. This blood breeds was only a cave master, and didn't know too much. But what Lu Yi didn't expect was that the other party actually gave him an answer. "Holy Master Qiyu is hiding in the blood river nearby, but I don't know her exact location." The underground blood river extended in all directions and ran through the entire territory of the blood refining world. There were large and small blood ponds as entrances and exits. If Lan Qiyue hid in the underground blood river, even if Holy Master Emohai was stronger than her and his bloodline was nobler than hers, he couldn't do anything to her. She was a smart woman. The blood breed's cave master probably knew that Lu Yi and Lan Qiyue were old friends. Otherwise, he wouldn't ask about Lan Qiyue's whereabouts. Thinking about it, when Lan Qiyue ruled this area, her attitude towards the human race was very friendly. She even issued a series of orders that were beneficial to the human race. It was natural for her to be loved and respected by the human race. Chapter 1151. Realizing this, the new cave master of Bright Moon Cave hurriedly said, "However, every once in a while, Holy Sage Qiyu would come out of the blood river and cause a ruckus. Then she would hide back in the blood river. In the past year, Holy Sage Emohai had tried to capture Holy Sage Qiyu several times, but to no avail. Calculating the time, the next time Holy Sage Qiyu comes out of the blood river is about half a month away. What is she causing a ruckus about?" Lu Yi frowned. The blood clansman's face turned bitter. She killed a group of people. The Bright Moon Cave was also one of Lan Qiyue's targets. Half a year ago, she had come here once. At that time, all the blood breeds had been slaughtered by her. The blood breeds that Lu Yi saw now were the ones who had moved in later. Now, the blood clansmen in this area were having a hard time, because no one knew which blood pool Lan Qiyue would come out of. Once she appeared, no matter if it was a cave residence, a blessed land, or a grotto heaven nearby, a group of blood clansmen would be in trouble. In the past year, the number of blood clansmen that died in her hands was at least a few hundred, if not 1,000. No one knew why Holy Sage Qiyu did this. For the time being, it seemed like she was venting. After all, she was originally the ruler of this area. In the end, she was chased away by Holy Sage Emohai. The blood clansmen under her also relied on Holy Sage Emohai. Naturally, she was unhappy and killed the blood clansmen to vent her anger. However, Lu Yi reacted quickly. This was not purely venting. Lan Qiyue was sending a message to him, telling him that she was still here. She was waiting for him. Under normal circumstances, once someone like Lan Qiyue encountered a stronger holy seed, She would naturally leave this area early to ensure her own safety. However, not only did she not leave, but she also jumped out of the blood river to cause a ruckus. It was as if she was afraid that others would not know she was still here. This was because Lu Yi brought Dao Shisan away from here. If he wanted to return one day, he would definitely return here. Although the two didn't have any agreement, and Lu Yi never told Lan Qiyue that he would definitely return, Lan Qiyue still had hope in her heart and looked forward to it. Therefore, even if she encountered an opponent that she could not defeat, she would not leave. Instead, she stayed and waited. Lu Yi could not help but sigh. Lan Qiyue was the same as the human women who were imprisoned in the cave residence. She had a hard life, but she had her own opportunity. She had accidentally obtained the saint's blood and became the saint's seed of the blood race. Although her race had changed, she still had the heart of a human. Thus, she would always consider the human race when she acted. After Lu Yi left, she continued to carry out the strategy of protecting the human race and forbidding the vampires from harming them. As time passed, it was inevitable that the vampires would become dissatisfied. This was probably the reason why the vampires under her command all surrendered when an even more powerful holy seed appeared. It wasn't just because of their reverence for the stronger ones, but also because Lu Ye's strategy had fundamentally violated the interests of the vampires. Lan Qiyue could use her identity as a holy seed to suppress the blood breeds under her, making them not dare to disobey her orders. However, this kind of suppression was ultimately contrary to the general trend of the blood-smelting world. The new cave master of Bright Moon Cave was not powerful, and his status was limited. Moreover, because he had only been here for a short time, he did not know much about Lan Qiyue. Other than what he had just revealed, he did not know much else. Lu Yi asked a few more questions, but did not receive any answers. He became impatient and killed him with a single slash. "Holy Sovereign, what do we do next?" Lu Chang asked. In his heart, Lu Chang was more willing to call Lu Yi master, just like how the blood slaves would address the vampires who had planted the blood mark on them. However, Lu Yi did not seem to like this title, so Lu Chang could only call him Holy Sovereign. "Send the human women here to the nearby villages, and let the villagers take care of them. Then, go out and help me gather more information," Lu Yi ordered. Lu Chang understood and gladly accepted the order. Lu Yi walked into the depths of the cave residence and came to a stone room. He looked at the lifeless corpse of a young girl, lying in a pool of blood with her head shattered. The screams just now should have come from this young girl. She was not humiliated to death. Instead, after the vampire who had humiliated her left, she resolutely slammed her head into the stone wall beside her. With Lu Ye's powerful divine will, he naturally sensed her actions, but he did not stop her. Although he could do it, in this world, there were still people with strong temperaments who could not stand being humiliated. Lu Yi might be able to save her this time, but if she really wanted to die, it would be useless no matter how many times others tried to save her. He raised his hand and shot out a flame. The blazing fire enveloped the corpse and quickly turned it into ashes. Lu Yi temporarily stayed in Bright Moon Cave. Lu Chang sent the abducted human women to Cangnan village. With him, a divine sea realm vampire, personally taking action, how could the humans of Cangnan village dare to resist? Naturally, they accepted all the women and took good care of them in the future. In the end, Lu Yi activated the jade token that his eldest senior brother had given him before he left, hoping to receive support from the elders of the human race, even though the possibility was very low. Because this place was too far away from the Southern Territory, the elders' range of activity was in the Southern Territory. Because they were in a state where they had to return to the Jade Blood Sacred Land at any time, it would be very troublesome if they were too far away. However, Lu Yi still issued a summons because one person might be nearby, and that was Wu Chang, who had taken half of the Divine Pillar. Since he had taken away half of the Tianji Pillar, Wu Chang's range of activity would not be limited to the Southern Territory. At this moment, he must have reached the Northern Territory. As for where he was and how far he was from Lu Yi could not determine. He had a premonition that he would very likely encounter Saint Sovereign Mo Hai, so he needed the help of the elders. Lu Chang was very capable. After all, he was a divine sea realm vampire, and was a respectable figure in the entire blood refinement realm. It was very convenient for him to inquire about information. After some inquiries, Lu Yi gradually understood some things. It was a little different from what he had imagined. He previously thought that Saint Sovereign Mo Hai had taken a fancy to Lan Qiyue's sacred blood, so he wanted to kill Lan Qiyue and take her sacred blood for his own use to improve his own bloodline. However, according to the information Lu Chang obtained, Saint Sovereign Mo Hai had not taken a fancy to Lan Qiyue's sacred blood, but Lan Qiyue herself. This guy actually wanted to become Dao companions with Lan Qiyue. That was very ridiculous. The temperament of the blood race was much more unrestrained than that of the human race. Regardless of gender, they didn't have much concept of loyalty, so very few blood race members would marry and become Dao companions. This was especially true for blood race members with higher cultivation. The less likely they would do such a thing. Regardless of gender, Saint Sovereign level vampires were basically loners. Therefore, it was somewhat unreasonable for Saint Sovereign Mo Hai to take a fancy to Lan Qiyue. However, on second thought, this might not be impossible. When Lan Qiyue was a human, she was extremely beautiful. Otherwise, she would not have been abducted by the vampires into Bright Moon Cave. Although the vampires and humans had different appearances in terms of beauty, most of the time, they were the same. Human beauties were also beautiful in their eyes. In the eyes of many vampires, human beauty was more in line with their taste. Lan Qiyue had turned from a human into a sacred seed. Although her appearance had changed greatly, her beauty did not decrease at all. In fact, it even increased. In addition, she was the first sacred seed in the blood refinement realm to be transformed from a human. Naturally, she had some gentleness that other female vampires did not have. Lu Yi might not be able to notice this, but the vampires could tell at a glance. In general, although Lan Qiyue was now a vampire, in the eyes of other vampires, she had a unique charm that other female vampires did not have. In the entire blood refinement realm, she was unique. Of course, the vampires at the level of Saint Sovereign were not only interested in Lan Qiyue's appearance, but also her identity. If he could really become Lan Qiyue's Dao companion, the two Saint Sovereigns would be a perfect match. Other Saint Seeds would not dare to provoke them casually. That made sense. Lu Yi was a little puzzled before. After all, Lan Qiyue was a newborn Saint Seed. She had not been a Saint Seed for long, and had only refined 1 drop of Saint blood. Saint Sovereign Mo Hai must have refined more than 1 drop of Saint blood. This guy was definitely a veteran Saint Sovereign. The suppression of bloodline alone was enough to make Lan Qiyue unable to do anything, not to mention the gap in strength between them. According to Lu Ye's calculations, Lan Qiyue should have broken through to the divine sea realm by now. As for what realm she was in, it was impossible to determine. With such a disadvantage, how could Lan Qiyue escape from Saint Sovereign Mo Hai? It turned out that the other party did not have much killing intent towards Lan Qiyue, which gave Lan Qiyue an opportunity to escape. What Lan Qiyue was doing now was no doubt a crazy test before the gates of hell. If she really bumped into Saint Sovereign Mo Hai one day, there would be nowhere for her to run. Lu Yi had to guard against this, and he had to be prepared to meet Lan Qiyue at any time. No one knew which blood pond she would appear from next. According to the information Lu Chang obtained, the blood ponds in this area were basically being secretly monitored by a number of blood race cultivators. As soon as Lan Qiyue appeared, they would immediately send a message to Saint Sovereign Mo Hai. However, this did not hinder Lu Ye's plan. After receiving this information, Lu Yi took action. With Ming Yu's cave mansion as the center, he arranged more than a dozen transmission arrays within a radius of several thousand kilometers. This way, once Lan Qiyue appeared, as long as there was news, he could immediately rush over. If he was lucky, he would not have to have any conflict with Saint Sovereign Mo Hai. He could just take Lan Qiyue and run away. When the cultivator army of the 9 regions arrived, it would not be too late to settle the score with Lan Qiyue. During this period, Lu Yi urged the power of the Jade token from time to time, and issued a summons. But so far, He had not received any response, nor did any of the old seniors suddenly appear in front of him. Therefore, Lu Yi knew that he would not be able to get support from the old seniors this time. In the end, he would have to solve Lan Qiyue's matter by himself. Chapter 1152. One day, half a month after Lu Yi stayed in the Bright Moon Cave, the voice transmission stone he kept on his body suddenly vibrated. He quickly took it out to check. It was a message from Lu Chang, who was inquiring outside. Lu Yi immediately rose to his feet and went to a stone room. He stood in front of a teleportation portal, and with a thought, he activated it with spiritual energy. The portal hummed, and the runes on it lit up. Then the void distorted, and his figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already on another transmission array thousands of miles away. After determining the direction, he soared into the sky and pounced in a certain direction. After waiting for half a month, Lan Qiyue finally made a move. As usual, this time she came out from a blood pool and made a mess in a cave. The blood of the Blood Clan there flowed like a river, and their corpses were everywhere. However, before she could withdraw, Lord Mo Hai, who had received the news, chased after her. The two lords then broke out into a war. This was the news from Lu Chang. Lu Yi knew that Lan Qiyue was doomed this time. This was what he had been worried about. Lan Qiyue had been moving too frequently. Although she had cleverly used the blood pool and the underground blood river to hide her tracks, it was inevitable that one's shoes would get wet if they walked by the river often. Especially when Saint Mo Hai had been watching her. Once or twice, she could escape before Lord Mo Hai arrived. However, if it happened too many times, there would always be mistakes. This was a matter of probability, and had nothing to do with luck. Lu Ye's original plan was to wait for Lan Qiyue to appear again, then find her as soon as possible, and take her away from this area. By doing so, he could avoid a direct conflict with Lord Mo Hai. The blood refining world was so big. When the time came, they could find a place to hide. When the opportunity came, the army of 9 regions cultivators would enter the blood refining world and stir up the situation. However, the plan could not keep up with the changes, and this change was what Lu Yi did not want to see the most. However, he could not sit back and do nothing. At this point, he could only bite the bullet. He would do his best and leave the rest to God. With the support of Windwalk and the activation of his wings of flight, he was like a bolt of lightning flashing through the sky, rapidly rushing towards the battlefield. Thanks to the teleportation formation he had set up before, the distance he needed to travel was greatly shortened. After flying for less than 5 minutes, he could feel a violent fluctuation of spiritual power in front of him. He looked up and saw a huge river of blood in the sky. The blood in the river was undulating, and the waves were rolling. Lan Qiyue and Saint Sovereign Mo Hai were nowhere to be seen. Only the aftermath of the intense battle could be seen from the river. Lu Ye's heart sank. The worst possible situation had happened. Lan Qiyue is trapped. Just like how he used the fusion of the blood rivers to trap the female holy seed, Saint Mo Hai was undoubtedly using the same method to trap Lan Qiyue. Their blood rivers had already fused together, making it difficult to separate them. Many blood kindred were standing around the battlefield. Many of them were at the Divine Sea realm. More blood kindred were on their way. Ordinary vampires had no way of interfering in a battle between saint seeds. Just the suppression of their bloodline alone was enough to turn them into weaklings. They had gathered here to watch the battle and to cheer on Lan Qiyue, preventing her from escaping. However, judging from the current situation, Lan Qiyue was destined to not be able to escape. Although they were very far away, the blood race members could still clearly sense the bloodline suppression coming from the other side, and all of them revealed expressions of fascination. In the blood refinement world, the blood kindred, who could achieve a holy seed, were all blessed by the heavens and earth. They were all people with amazing luck. Although the way to achieve a holy seed was to enter the river of blood to fuse with the holy blood, there were not many blood kindred who had the guts to do so. For example, Lu Ye's first soul slave, Zhang Zhilai, had the courage and boldness to enter the river of blood. However, the result was death. The risk of adult blood kindred entering the river of blood was too great. However, this was the only way for a blood kindred to become a holy seed. On the other hand, the newborn blood kindred could swim freely in the river of blood and quickly absorb the power of the river to grow. The miraculous nature of the river of blood was evident. Until now, the blood kindred had never understood why it was like this. However, this was how their ancestors lived. The underground blood river that extended in all directions gave the blood breeds the feeling of a gentle yet strict mother. Before the blood breeds fully grew up, this mother was gentle. She was willing to let the children absorb nutrients from her to strengthen themselves. However, once the children grew up, she would chase them out at the first opportunity and not allow them to return as they pleased. If they dared to return rashly, they would even have to bear the risk of being beaten to death by this mother. And the risk was extremely high. Many blood kindred were watching the battle from afar. They all hid outside the range of the bloodline suppression and did not dare to step forward. In fact, if it was a battle between a holy seed and a human powerhouse, the ordinary blood kindred could still contribute. Other things aside, they could activate the blood river technique and fuse it with the holy seed's river of blood to increase the volume and power of the holy seed's river of blood. However, this was a battle between two holy seeds. The ordinary blood kindred could not interfere. They could also use the blood river technique, but it would not help the situation at all. Therefore, they were at ease as spectators. No one thought that Holy Saint Emohai would lose. This time, they had finally captured Holy Saint Chiyu. The ordinary blood kindred could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Otherwise, they would not be able to resist a holy saint coming out to cause trouble every few days. Yes. Suddenly, one of the blood race at the Spirit Sea realm sensed something and turned around. He saw a flash of light flying towards them from afar. Because it was moving so fast, there were thunderous booms coming from it. It was quite a sight to behold. More and more vampires sensed the presence of this human approaching the battlefield. All of them showed a look of surprise. Fifth Order Divine Sea Realm. Whose blood slave is this? A blood race heavenly venerable asked with an envious look. In the entire blood refining world, Spirit Sea Realm humans were rare. Generally, they were blood slaves that the blood kindred spent a lot of time and effort to cultivate. Humans who were not blood slaves had no opportunity or space to reach the upper realm. Firstly, they lacked cultivation resources. Secondly, the blood kindred would not allow humans to produce powerful masters. Therefore, almost all the blood kindred thought that this person was a blood slave, raised by a certain clan, after noticing his cultivation. As for the identity of this human, it couldn't be easier because the light was not blood red. But soon, many Spirit Sea Realm blood kindred became confused, because no one recognized this Spirit Sea Realm human who had suddenly appeared. Moreover, the situation quickly took a turn for the worse. This human was coming over aggressively without any intention of slowing down or restraining his power. He was actually charging straight at the spectating blood kindred. "It's not a blood slave," a blood kindred immediately shouted. It was impossible for a blood slave to be so bold. Even a Spirit Sea Realm blood slave would have an innate inferiority when facing an ordinary blood kindred. With so many blood kindred gathered here, how could a blood slave dare to act rashly? In an instant, the blood kindred recalled some rumors from the Southern Territory. It was said that there was a human race holy land in the Southern Territory. There were as many masters as there were clouds in the sky. They had resisted the encirclement and suppression of the holy race army many times. There were even saint venerables who fell in the war there. Because the Northern Territory was too far away, such an outrageous thing had never happened. But what if a human race master from the Southern Territory came here? Although the possibility wasn't high, it was a fact that this human Spirit Sea Realm cultivator didn't have the slightest respect for the holy race. If he had even the slightest respect, he would have slowed down and revealed his identity instead of charging straight at them. This made the blood kindred's eyes bulge, feeling that their authority was being challenged. "Bold!" A blood race Spirit Sea Realm cultivator shouted angrily, raising his hand and shooting out a blood technique. His cultivation was at the Ninth Order Divine Sea Realm. It could be said that in the entire blood-refining world, besides the holy seed, he was the strongest blood kindred. He believed that he could deal with a fifth-order divine sea realm human without any problems. However, the situation was beyond his expectations. Faced with his powerful blood technique, the other party didn't even try to dodge and directly met it head-on. Then, a scene that shocked all the blood kindred appeared. The human raised his hand and also shot out a blood technique to meet the incoming blood technique. With a loud bang, the two blood techniques collided, and the blood technique of the blood race's spirit sea realm cultivator was defeated. If it were 2 months ago, Lu Yi might not have been able to achieve this. Even if he had obtained the blood race's bloodline inheritance by refining the holy blood, and could use some blood techniques at will, blood techniques were still the blood race's specialty, especially for a powerful 9th-order divine sea realm cultivator, who had been immersed in blood techniques for countless years. How could a half-baked blood technique like him compare? However, after refining the large drop of holy blood from the female holy seed, the benefits Lu Yi obtained were not only the improvement of his saint attribute, but also his understanding of blood techniques. As a result, the same blood technique he used before was vastly different from the one he used now. It was already outrageous for a human to be able to use blood techniques, but what was even more outrageous was that his cultivation was clearly lower, but the blood technique he displayed was actually stronger. If that was all, it wouldn't be a big deal, but what shocked all the blood race cultivators was that as Lu Yi displayed his blood technique, an invisible suppression suddenly descended. It was a natural suppression that came from one's bloodline, and it was something no blood race cultivator could ignore. In an instant, the blood race cultivators who were originally hovering in the air fell down like dumplings. They were all blood race cultivators at the Cloud River realm and True Lake realm. The blood race cultivators at the Divine Sea realm could still hold on, but they couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts and souls. They were also very unlucky. The reason they stayed here was because they were far enough away from the battlefield that they could feel the bloodline suppression from the two Saint Venerables on the battlefield, but it wouldn't affect them much. But now there were some things that they couldn't avoid even if they wanted to. Chapter 1153. They didn't know whether this was a human race earth seed or not. If they said he was a human, he could actually use blood techniques. He could easily suppress the saint race's bloodline. If they said he was a saint seed, he clearly looked like a human race. So many blood race had lived for so many years, but they had never seen such a strange thing. In an instant, Lu Yi had crashed into the place where many Spirit Sea Realm blood race cultivators were gathered. As his figure swept past, a dazzling saber light burst forth. Immediately following the saber light was a burst of blood. At this moment, more than a dozen blood race cultivators at the Divine Sea Realm closest to Lu Yi fell from the sky, including the 9th Order Divine Sea Realm blood race cultivator, who had attacked before. His head had been separated from his neck, blood spurted out, and his eyes were wide open in death. If he really wanted to kill this blood race cultivator, he could succeed, but it would be impossible to do it so cleanly, as if he was slaughtering a chicken. But under the natural advantage of bloodline suppression, this impossible thing became possible. Lu Yi even killed more than a dozen weaker Spirit Sea Realm blood race cultivators. Only now did Lu Yi suddenly realize that his last blood refinement, he had coincidentally refined a drop of saint blood, which gave him the unique saint nature of a saint seed. This trace of saint nature, which could continue to grow by absorbing more saint blood, might be able to shine in the upcoming war. Lu Yi was looking forward to it. But before that, he still had to solve the problem Lan Qiyu was facing. His figure quickly approached the blood river in the sky. His mind was racing, thinking about how to smoothly and safely get Lan Qiyu out of it. But there was one thing that puzzled him, because it must have been some time since the battle here broke out, and Lu Chang received the news and passed it to him. He rushed over through the transmission array after receiving the news, and it took him half a cup of tea's time to get there. So no matter what, the battle here should have lasted for a long time. How did Lan Qiyu persist? Logically speaking, her bloodline was not as noble as Saint Imo Hai's, and there must be a big gap in strength. Under these two disadvantages, she should have been defeated long ago. But she was clearly still persevering. Lu Yi could not figure out how Lan Qiyue did it. At this moment, a dignified voice came from the blood river. Qiyu, don't be stubborn, my patience is limited. It was undoubtedly Saint Venerable Mohai's voice. Hearing this, Lu Yi suddenly understood. The reason why Lan Qiyue could last so long was not because she was strong, but because Holy Sage Mohai still wanted to become her Tao companion. So he did not make a move. In any case, based on the current situation, Lan Qiyue had no way out. She was completely trapped in the blood river by Saint Mohai and could not escape. However, Saint Mohai still had hope, and was not willing to completely shed all pretense of cordiality. This gave Lan Qiyue a chance to catch her breath. However, Saint Sovereign Mohai was clearly not a patient person. That sentence was his final warning. To him, it would be best if Lan Qiyue agreed to become his Tao companion. However, if Lan Qiyue did not agree, he could only kill Lan Qiyue and take her sacred blood for himself. The timing of Lu Ye's arrival was just right. In the blood river, Lan Qiyue did not respond. This was also her response. She hated the blood clan to the core. If Lu Yi did not occupy the Bright Moon Cave and lend her a helping hand, she did not know what kind of humiliation she would have suffered. After that, she was forced to enter the blood pool. Fortunately, she did not die and absorbed a drop of sacred blood. She became the blood clan's sacred seed and became the race she hated the most. To Lan Qiyue, this was more painful than death. At that time, she even thought of not leaving the blood river and directly dying there. However, after thinking about it, since she had become a sacred seed, it seemed to be a good choice to save her body, to kill the blood clan she hated. After that, she occupied Qianlu Blessed Land with Lu Yi. Lu Yi retreated behind the scenes while she stood in the front. She had the greatest possibility of protecting the human race in the territory. Finally, she had the desire to continue living. She had encountered misfortune before. Since the sacred seed was high up in the blood-refining world, she could use the identity of the sacred seed to protect the human women in the territory and prevent them from suffering the same fate as her. Even after Lu Yi left, she had always adhered to this idea and carried out the strategy set by Lu Yi. However, before she became a sacred seed, she was still an inexperienced human girl. She did not know how deep the waters of the blood-refining world were, nor did she know the dangers of this world. She thought that the sacred seed was high up, but she did not expect that there was a difference in bloodline between the sacred seeds. In addition, she was constantly expanding her territory and breaking some of the conventions of the blood refinement realm. Finally, she was targeted by another Saint Venerable. A newborn sacred seed that had not fully matured was targeted by a veteran sacred seed. Naturally, she did not have a good ending. After sensing Sacred Sage Mohai's power, she did not even have the desire to fight, because she knew she was no match for him. What happened next was simple. She abandoned the foundation she had worked hard to build, and used the blood pools and trances to hide, until she was caught by Sacred Sage Mohai. There was no anger, only regret. She did not complete the mission Lu Yi had left behind, and failed to protect the humans. She knew that once she was gone, the humans nearby would suffer the same fate as before. Her biggest regret was that she could not see senior apprentice brother Lu Yi again. If she had known this would happen, would it have been better to leave with senior apprentice brother? There was no medicine for regret in this world, and there was no turning back. Life was all about making different choices. Every choice would lead one to a different path. No one knew what would happen if one chose a different path. At least it would not be a loss. She was just an ordinary human girl. After becoming a sacred seed, she had killed many disgusting vampires. Lan Qiyue could clearly see that there was yet another extremely intense collision. She did not care about the anger and regret in Sacred Sage Mohai's eyes. She naturally knew what Sacred Sage Mohai was thinking, but she would never agree to his request, even if she would die here. Her injuries were serious. If she continued to fight, there was no hope for her to escape. His life would also come to an end. Lan Qiue's eyes flashed with determination. The aura around her started to become dangerous and chaotic. When Sacred Sage Emohai saw this, he knew what she was going to do. He immediately retreated. At the same time, he activated his blood art to block Lan Qiue. He said, "Why?" The Blood Clan's blood explosion technique was their signature technique, and it was also the Blood Clan's last resort. Ordinary Blood Clan members would be able to use this blood technique when they reached a certain level of cultivation. Naturally, the Holy Seed could do the same, and its power would only be greater. Therefore, even if he was much stronger than Lan Qiue and had a nobler bloodline, he was not willing to face the risk of Lan Qiue's self-destruction. He could not stop it. When a blood breed was determined to die and activated the blood explosion art, no one could stop it unless they were willing to stop it. He did feel that it was a pity. He really wanted Lan Qiue to join forces with him. Dao companions were just shackles in name. The Sacred Seed's opponent could only be other Sacred Seeds. He had his own opponents. They had been fighting for many years and had always been evenly matched. If he could get Lan Qiue's help, he would be able to suppress his opponent. Therefore, when he knew that Lan Qiue, the newborn Sacred Seed, had appeared nearby, he rushed over. However, this stubborn newborn Sacred Seed was not even willing to give him this status. Sacred Sage Emohai could not understand why. Why was a mere status more important than life and death? This newborn Sacred Seed? What was she so stubborn about? Although the blood breeds were not lacking in courage, this kind of meaningless stubbornness was rare. Anyway, if he was the one facing this situation, he would have already bowed down. It was not shameful to submit to a Sacred Seed with a stronger bloodline. Sacred Sage Emohai suddenly looked surprised. He turned his head and looked in a direction. In that direction, there were traces of a living being's aura. With just a slight sense, he discovered that the intruder was a human cultivator. His cultivation level did not seem weak. Where did this human come from? He actually dared to barge into such a battlefield. Qiue. The human's voice came from the intruder. To Sacred Sage Emohai's astonishment, the dangerous aura on Lan Qiue's body calmed down in an instant. Senior brother? Lan Qiue almost thought that she was dreaming. The moment before she was about to leave this ugly world, she actually heard a voice that she had not heard for a long time. She subconsciously thought that she was hallucinating or hearing things. However, under her perception, a familiar figure had indeed barged into the blood river. Although they had not seen each other for several years, and this senior brother's cultivation level had improved tremendously, Lan Qiue still recognized Lu Yi at a glance. It was really the person who saved her from the sea of bitterness and gave her a new life. In an instant, Lan Qiue's expression was terrified. Even when she decided to use the blood explosion technique to self-destruct, her expression did not change at all. There was only the determination to face death. This was because she did not care about her own life. However, now that senior brother Lu Yi was involved, she had no choice but to not care. In the blink of an eye, her fear turned into determination. She brazenly charged towards Saint Sovereign Emohai, with almost no intention of defending herself. She was only prepared to unleash all of her attacks. At the same time, she hurriedly shouted, "Senior Martial Brother, retreat!" She did not know why Lu Yi would appear here at this time, but he was definitely here to find her. However, rashly barging into the blood river was unwise. She could only do her best to create an opportunity for Lu Yi to escape. Chapter 1154. Senior Brother? The corner of Saint Emohai's eyes twitched. If he did not hear it with his own ears, he would not believe that a saint seed of the blood race would address a human in such an intimate manner. Moreover, this form of address carried some respect. This made him furious. In the blood refining world, the sacred clan was noble, and the sacred seed was even more superior. The human race was just livestock raised by the blood clan, food for blood. Not to mention Lan Qiue, who was a sacred seed. Even the ordinary sacred clan had the right to kill the human race. But now, right under his nose, a saint seed actually respectfully addressed a human as senior brother. What kind of scandal was this? When Lan Qiue ruled this area, She gave many preferential treatment to the human race. For example, she never allowed the sacred race under her command to harm the human race at will. The sacred race's blood and flesh were regularly collected from the human race's gathering places. He had heard about these things. He only thought that Lan Qiyu was born kind, just like how there were humans who loved pigs and dogs. Although they loved them, it did not stop them from gorging themselves when they were hungry. He naturally thought that Lan Qiyu was in a similar situation. But now, it seemed that things were not as he thought. Lan Qiyu truly approved of humans from the bottom of her heart. Otherwise, why would she address a human as senior brother? Saint Emohai was furious. A saint seed like Lan Qiyu was undoubtedly a heretic among saint seeds. She could not be left alive. Only now did he truly have the intention to kill Lan Qiyu. His divine telekinesis turned into an invisible impact that blasted towards Lan Qiyu. At the same time, he mobilized the power of the blood river and pressed it in all directions. Lan Qiyu could not help but groan. The difference in bloodline and strength made her unable to fight back when facing Saint Emohai. Previously, she was still able to fight back when Saint Emohai was being lenient. Now that he wanted to kill her, and no longer held back, she immediately felt her own powerlessness. Lan Qiyu despaired because she realized that Lu Yi did not retreat. Instead, he rushed towards her at an even faster speed. Just as Saint Emohai was about to punch Lan Qiyu's head, Lu Yi hurriedly arrived. His blade flashed, and the mountain blade slashed towards Saint Emohai's arm. Attacked the enemy's vital point. He didn't have the confidence to block Saint Emohai's attack before Saint Emohai smashed Lan Qiyu's head into pieces. So this was his only choice. In a battle, the situation often changed rapidly. Most of the time, there was not much room to think. The choices that cultivators could make were basically the most instinctive reactions. This required the accumulation of experience from life and death battles. Lu Ye's choice at this moment was undoubtedly correct, because Emohai actually felt a trace of threat when facing such a strike. This was almost impossible. Every blood race cultivator was a natural combination of body cultivation and spirit Tao cultivation. A blood race cultivator like Saint Venerable Emohai had an incredibly powerful physique. Lu Yi was just a fifth-order divine sea realm cultivator. Even if he used all his strength to slash out, it shouldn't pose too much of a threat to him. But in fact he did feel threatened. One had to admit that Saint Venerable Emohai's instincts were very sharp. It was indeed impossible for Lu Ye's saber to cut off his arm. After fighting with the female Saint Seed last time, Lu Yi had experienced the strength of an enemy at this level. Their physique was comparable to a spirit artifact, and it wasn't something that could be easily destroyed. Back then, he also used all his strength to slash at the female Saint Seed's hand, but it only caused some minor injuries to her. Lu Yi didn't know who was stronger between Saint Venerable Emohai and the female Saint Seed, because the strength of a Saint Seed depended on the bloodline. But he knew that his saber could only cause some superficial wounds to his opponent at most. But the power of the soul-splitting saber was enough to catch his opponent off guard. Once his opponent's soul was impacted by the power of the soul-splitting saber, Lu Ye's attacks would be endless like a storm. At that time, the minor injuries would accumulate to major injuries, and then to serious injuries. He would then be able to take the initiative in the battle. At that time, whether he retreated or stayed would depend on how the battle developed. But his plan didn't work in the end, because Saint Venerable Mohai nimbly retracted his arm in the face of such a saber, and retreated quickly at the same time. He had to figure out where his worry and fear came from. If he couldn't figure it out, this battle would be extremely disadvantageous for him. Saint Venerable Mohai retreated at the right time, and Lan Qiyu's crisis was resolved. Lu Yi grabbed her shoulder and fled into the depths of the blood river. Although he couldn't get rid of Saint Venerable Emohai's surveillance, it was better to stay as far away from him as possible. After a short while the two of them stood still. Lan Qiyu looked at Lu Yi with a complicated gaze. "Senior brother, you shouldn't have come." It was easy to come to a place like the blood river, but difficult to leave. Even with her restraints, Saint Venerable Emohai still had the majority of the initiative in the blood river after they merged. If Saint Venerable Emohai didn't let her go, Lu Yi couldn't leave. Let's not talk about this. How are you? Lu Yi asked as his divine thought surged, monitoring Saint Venerable Mo Hai's movements. I'm fine. Lan Qiyu shook her head. She was indeed fine. Fortunately, Saint Venerable Mo Hai didn't want to completely fall out with her, so he didn't hit her hard. Although she was injured, they were only minor injuries. The other thing was that she had consumed a lot of energy. That's good, Lu Yi responded. Although he came in time to avoid Lan Qiyue's fate of self-destruction, the current situation was the last thing he wanted to see. When he was fighting with the female holy seed, he had 3 human seniors by his side. In the end, he spent a lot of effort to force her to self-destruct. Now, there was only him and Lan Qiyue. Facing an expert like Saint Venerable Mo Hai, it was inevitable that they were alone. Especially in such a battle, Lan Qiyue didn't have much room to perform. It could even be said that Lu Yi didn't know to what extent he could perform. This was because before he activated his blood art, he didn't know the difference between his bloodline and Saint Venerable Mo Hai's. He could foresee that Saint Venerable Mo Hai's bloodline wouldn't be too low. After all, he was an old holy seed and must have obtained more than 1 drop of holy blood over the years. Lu Yi wasn't bad either. He had refined the holy blood left behind by the female holy seed, and his holy nature was much stronger than before. But who was stronger and who was weaker could only be determined by using his blood art. Lu Yi felt that even if his holy nature wasn't as good as Saint Venerable Mo Hai's, he wouldn't be completely suppressed. Moreover, his strength wouldn't be weakened by the suppression of his holy nature. This was an advantage that the blood race's holy seed didn't have. He was only suppressed in the use of his blood art. But in battle, when did he rely on blood arts as his main reliance? He always relied on the long sword in his hand. Lu Yi took a deep breath and said softly, "Take care of yourself." As soon as he finished speaking, blood energy spread all over his body. Under Lan Qiyue's shocked gaze, a river of blood spread out. She didn't expect Lu Yi to be able to use the blood river technique, a secret technique unique to the blood race. Moreover, with the use of the blood river technique, an indescribable pressure came from Lu Yi. It was the bloodline suppression of the holy seed. Lan Qiyue couldn't help but be in a daze. When did senior brother become a holy seed? What shocked her even more was that the suppression coming from Lu Yi was stronger than Saint Venerable Mo Hai's. If facing Sacred Venerate Mo Hai was like facing a vicious wolf, then Lu Yi was like a ferocious tiger right now. His power was obviously stronger than Saint Venerable Mo Hai's. Saint Venerable Mo Hai was as shocked as Lan Qiyue. Since Lu Yi appeared and he retreated, Saint Venerable Mo Hai had been paying attention to the mountain coiling saber in Lu Yi's hand with the help of the blood river technique, because he felt that a 5th-order divine sea realm human race cultivator couldn't pose any threat to him. The source of his sense of crisis was most likely this plain-looking saber. It was very likely that this saber had some mysterious power that could hurt him. As for whether this was true or not, Saint Venerable Mo Hai would know after a little verification. But just as he made up his mind, Lu Yi used his blood river technique. In an instant, Saint Venerable Mo Hai's face changed greatly, because he felt an extremely clear suppressive force being transmitted from his opponent's body. This force was invisible, but it caused Saint Venerable Mo Hai's mind to tremble, and his vitality to surge. The blood river in the sky began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye while his own powerful momentum was suppressed to a certain extent. A holy seed, and a holy seed whose bloodline is even nobler than mine. Saint Venerable Mo Hai had no idea what was happening. A living human race cultivator had inexplicably displayed the power of a holy seed while maintaining his human appearance. Lu Yi, on the other hand, felt relieved. The situation was much better than he had imagined. Originally, he thought that not being suppressed here would be the best outcome. But now it seemed that he had overestimated Saint Venerable Mo Hai. This guy's bloodline was even worse than the female holy seed he had killed 2 months ago. Lu Yi couldn't be blamed for this misjudgment. He had only recently learned about the many tricks between holy seeds, and he hadn't encountered many holy seeds. Naturally, he couldn't judge the strength of the holy seed's bloodlines. The female holy seed that had been killed was actually very powerful in terms of bloodline alone. However, this kind of power wasn't very useful to the senior of the human race and Lu Yi. Therefore, when she died, the holy blood left behind after her death benefited Lu Yi. Lu Yi, who had completely inherited the female holy seed's holy blood, would only be stronger in terms of holy nature, because he had refined a drop of holy blood himself. If he had come into contact with more of the blood race's holy seeds, he would have found that most of them were like Saint Venerable Mo Hai. Their holy nature didn't mean that they could grow indefinitely, but there was an invisible limit. Of course, the upper limit of each holy seed was different, so there were strong and weak holy natures. Because of this limit, there wouldn't be too many conflicts between holy seeds, which was different from what Lu Yi had imagined. In the end, he still didn't know enough. End of chapter. Chapter 1155. The blood river spread out, and the strength of each other's holiness could be seen at a glance. This was the situation he wanted to see the most, but he didn't expect it to really happen. Originally, he thought that even if his holiness was suppressed, it wouldn't be too much. When the time came, all he had to do was try his best to save Lan Qiyu. As for whether he could do it, he would only know after fighting. At the very least, he would have no problem protecting himself and escaping. But when he realized that his side's holiness was stronger, Lu Ye's ambition wasn't as simple as saving Lan Qiyu. Since he could do more, he naturally had to give it a try. With a thought, the unfurrowed river of blood quickly merged in all directions. At the same time, he summoned the dragon throne. Amidst the crackling sounds in the distance, a ferocious aura filled the air. A slender scarlet figure suddenly appeared. The two spots of dark red light that floated out of its eye sockets were even denser than the blood around it. Since he was going to try, he naturally had to give it his all. His holiness was indeed stronger than Saint Mo Hai's, but Lu Yi didn't think that he could easily win this battle. After all, there was still a gap in their strength. A saint master was comparable to the elders of the human race. But in the next moment, Lu Yi realized that he had done something wrong. He had summoned the Dragon Emperor to take a gamble and cut the Gordian knot quickly. But when the Dragon Emperor joined in, however, when the Dragon Emperor added on, his holiness was actually isolated by the Dragon Emperor. This caused his aura to become even more ferocious and terrifying. But the suppression on Saint Mo Hai's bloodline suddenly disappeared. Even when he used the blood river technique, he could not sense it. It was as if there was an invisible barrier separating him from the blood river. This was undoubtedly the effect of the Dragon Emperor. This thing was a full-body armor that covered the body from head to toe. Not only did it isolate Lu Ye's holiness, but it also blocked Lu Ye's control of the blood river. Saint Master Mo Hai keenly sensed this change and almost bled. The moment the meridian suppression disappeared, his figure flashed and split into three. The three Mo Hais pounced on Lu Yi from three different directions in an instant. In front of him, they smashed their fists down. Blood clone. This was similar to the body clone technique of the magic cultivator lineage. In comparison, the blood clan's blood technique was more convenient and faster. When Lu Yi had teamed up with Jian Guhong and the others to fight against the female holy seed, the other party had also used this blood technique. However, at that time, Lu Yi was only a distraction, so he did not need to use too much strength. However, at this moment, there were no human seniors around him, and because of the bloodline suppression, Lan Qiyu could not do much. He could only rely on himself. Of the three figures, some were real and some were fake. The key to unraveling this secret technique was how to quickly identify the real one. When the female saint seed used this secret technique, it was Jian Guhong who dealt with it. His method was simple and direct, no matter how many clones you had. As one of the top experts among sword cultivators, Jian Guhong had the ability to do so, and he also had the means to do so. That was why, at the end of the battle that day, the female saint seed no longer used blood clones, because it was pointless. Jian Guhong had no way of quickly distinguishing between the real and the fake, so he had to rely on the sword in his hand. However, Lu Yi could. After all, he had inherited the blood arts of the blood kindred, so he could also use a secret technique like blood clone. The blood doppelganger was meaningless in a battle between holy seeds because it was easy for the other party to see through it. None of the three figures were real. It had to be said that Saint Emohai was a cunning person. His real body was currently in the dense blood mist in the blood river. Using the gaps created by the clones, he had quietly approached Lu Yi. He punched out. Although Lu Yi knew that the three clones were all illusions and knew that Saint Emohai was right beside him, he still could not avoid the punch. This had nothing to do with eyesight or experience. In the end, strength was the deciding factor in a battle. This punch landed heavily on the Dragon Emperor's back, and under the impact of the violent power, the tall scarlet figure was sent flying. The Dragon Emperor was a powerful armor refined from dragon scales. It had great resistance against spells and other types of attacks. The only thing it could not weaken was this kind of direct impact. Saint Emohai naturally did not know about the Dragon Emperor's mysteries. He had only chosen the attack he was best at. The punch caused Lu Yi to see stars, and his back burned with pain. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were displaced, and as he tumbled out, he quickly put away the Dragon Emperor. With the Dragon Emperor, his strength would increase tremendously. However, it made him lose the bloodline suppression on Saint Emohai. It also made it difficult for him to control the blood river. A wrong judgment cost Lu Yi. Fortunately, the price was not too great. The Dragon Emperor disappeared, and Lu Ye's figure reappeared. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His Holiness spread out and punched him. Saint Master Emohai, who was about to continue, felt the pressure again. He was instantly annoyed. The bloodline suppression would only affect Lu Ye's use of blood arts. It did not affect his strength. However, it was different for Saint Emohai. This suppression could directly affect his strength. At this moment, his strength was suppressed by at least 20%. However, one should not underestimate this 20%. This suppression was extremely terrifying, especially in a battle of life and death. Then, he sensed the blood river's change. This was because Lu Yi was urging his blood river to merge with the blood river around him. There was a difference in timing. Lu Yi had used the blood river as a cover, so he did not notice it in time. He wanted to avoid the geographical advantage of the phoenix soil. If they merged, both of them would lose their geographical advantage. Saint Emohai noticed this. He rushed toward Lu Yi while controlling his blood river to block Lu Ye's movements. It was just like how Lu Yi blocked the female sacred seed's blood river. However, his blood river was already merged with Lan Qiyue's blood river. What he wanted to do would naturally be stopped by Lan Qiyue. Among the 3 people present, Lan Qiyue had the lowest bloodline and the strongest strength. His blood river was able to interfere with Saint Venerable Emohai to a certain extent. 2 wills and 2 forces appeared in the blood river. The power of Saint Emohai was blocking Lu Ye's merging, while the power of Lan Qiyue was doing the opposite. Bitch! Saint Emohai was furious. He raised his hand and waved. In an instant, a huge blood all spun and drilled toward Lan Qiyue. It shook its head and wagged its tail like a blood dragon. It was ferocious. Wherever it passed, the blood river's water would churn. Naturally, Lan Qiyue wouldn't be so stupid as to just stand there. In such a situation, standing there was equivalent to waiting for death. She was constantly in a state of movement. Moreover, she didn't move closer to Lu Yi because she knew that she couldn't be a burden to Lu Yi. Facing Saint Emohai's blood art, she hurriedly escaped. This was not like when Saint Emohai wanted her to agree to become his Dao companion. At that time he was merciful. But now, he would not be merciful. He just wanted to kill Lan Qiyue quickly. While fleeing, Lan Qiyue also activated a series of blood arts to intercept the blood cone dragon. However, due to the huge gap in strength and bloodline, she was unable to resist the blood cone dragon. In just a moment, the blood all wrapped around Lan Qiyue's body. Boundless strangulation power cut through the void. Blood spurted from Lan Qiyue's body. However, her resistance was not in vain. At least she had resolved the crisis. Another blood all followed closely. Lan Qiyue's eyes flashed with a dark look. She realized that she could not resist it anymore. After waiting for so long, Senior Brother had finally arrived. Furthermore, from Senior Brother's current state, it was clear that he had refined sacred blood. Without a burden like him, with senior brother's bloodline, even if he was slightly weaker, Saint Sovereign Emohai wouldn't be able to do anything to him. At the very least, senior brother could escape safely. She believed that senior brother would avenge her sooner or later. Just as she was about to accept her fate, a spinning blood-red vortex suddenly appeared in front of her. The vortex was like a black hole, and it directly swallowed the incoming blood all. Although it did not completely dissolve the power of this blood technique, it gave Lan Qiyu a chance to escape. This was obviously Lu Ye's move. He had not completely merged with the blood river. He had only merged part of it. Lan Qiyu's position was within his range of control. This gave him a chance to help. Fortunately, she did not die. Lan Qiyu hurriedly escaped to the edge of the blood river. There was not much she could do at the moment. She could only try her best not to be a burden to Lu Yi. Although Saint Emohai was unwilling to accept that he could not kill Lan Qiyu with 2 blood alls, he had no time to pay attention to Lan Qiyu. This was because Lu Yi was activating many blood arts and attacking him crazily. Saint Emohai had no choice but to fight back with blood arts. For a moment, many blood arts were released in the blood river. Spiritual power fluctuations were extremely chaotic. After a while, Saint Emohai calmed down a little. This was because he had the upper hand in the battle of blood arts. Even though Lu Ye's understanding of blood arts had deepened after refining the female Saint Seed's Saint Blood, Saint Master Emohai was still a veteran Saint Master. He had been immersed in blood arts for many, many years longer than Lu Yi. The comprehension and experience he had accumulated over the years was not something Lu Yi could compare to. Not only were they competing in blood arts, but they were also competing in the blood river. However, in the battle of blood rivers, Saint Emohai was at a disadvantage. This could not be helped. This was because he had to fight against 2 people at the same time. His blood river had already merged with Lan Qiyu's. With Lan Qiyu's help in the dark, he could not stop their blood rivers from merging. Chapter 1156. Coupled with the suppression of their bloodlines, it was only a matter of time before their blood rivers merged. The only thing Saint Emohai could do was delay this process as much as possible. At the very least, Yangkai still had some geographical advantage, but once Lu Ye's blood river was integrated into the battle, this advantage would disappear. However, some things couldn't be stopped just because one wanted to. The blood rivers continued to merge as the blood arts clashed. Until a certain moment, the fusion was complete. In the eyes of the blood race spectating from afar, the blood river had expanded greatly. The volume of the blood river in the middle had undoubtedly expanded by a lot, because the current blood river was the fusion of the 3 blood rivers. The blood river spread out like a sea of blood. It was a sea of terrifying might. The terrifying holiness surging out from the blood sea made all the blood race not dare to approach recklessly. Within the blood river, Saint Emohai gritted his teeth. His face was full of anger as he activated more and more blood arts. Lu Yi no longer used blood arts to attack. He was at a disadvantage in this aspect. It was unrealistic to rely on blood arts to kill Saint Emohai. Now that the river of blood had fused, it would be difficult for him, Saint Sovereign Emohai, or Lan Qiyu to escape from the battlefield today. The disadvantage on the battlefield had been evened out. All that was left was to fight. Lu Ye's figure flickered as he pounced towards Saint Emohai. He waved his mountain saber, blocking one blood art after another. His aura was rising steadily. The distance between them was rapidly closing. A drop of essence blood exploded. Under the cover of Lu Ye's clothes, a blood-stained spiritual pattern formed on his chest. In an instant, his already ferocious aura became even more violent. He couldn't use the Dragon Emperor, but the blood-stained spiritual pattern was fine. Although the enhancement brought by the blood-stained spiritual pattern would become weaker as Lu Ye's strength increased, any bit of improvement could be an opportunity for victory in a life-and-death battle like this. Saint Emohai wasn't just standing there as Lu Yi closed in. He kept retreating, but the blood sea was only so big. Where could he retreat to? All of a sudden, the 2 figures collided. When the Pan Mountain Saber slashed down, Saint Venerable Emohai met it with his fist. However, he was already wary of the Pan Mountain Saber's power, so he wasn't stupid enough to take it head-on. Even though he did not know what would happen if he was hit by the saber. Therefore, his attack was aimed at the body of the mountain pan saber. Lu Ye's saber was knocked to the side by the impact. He took advantage of the momentum to kick out his leg, aiming for Saint Sage Mohai's abdomen with a ferocious kick. However, he didn't expect the other party to have the same thoughts. Under the same head-on collision, the two figures stagnated slightly, and then their figures retreated at the same time. The violent power exploded, and within a radius of 100 feet, the river of blood turned into a sky. Under the obstruction of the invisible power, the surrounding blood water formed a hollow circle with a radius of 100 feet. Forcefully stabilizing themselves, each of them pounced on the other ferociously. Among all the battles, this kind of close combat was the most dangerous, but also the most entertaining. The clash between an armament cultivator and a body cultivator would often ignite the fiercest sparks. Every time Lu Ye's long saber slashed down, it was blocked by Saint Sage Mohai's fists. Saint Sage Mohai's sharp attacks were also completely neutralized by Lu Yi. Both of them unleashed fierce moves one after another, and the battle was in full swing. For a moment, they were evenly matched. The last trace of uneasiness in Lu Ye's heart dissipated. Although his saint attribute was stronger than Saint Sage Mohai's, and could suppress his strength to a certain extent, he couldn't figure out the extent of this suppression until they fought head-on. After this exchange, Lu Yi confirmed one thing. The strength that Saint Sage Mohai could display at this moment was stronger than an ordinary 9th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. And Lu Ye's perception of his own strength was about the same level. In other words, Saint Sage Mohai was slightly stronger than him, but there was a limit to it. Thanks to the various specialties of the blood race, and the female Saint Seed who died before, Lu Yi wouldn't have the capital to compete with Saint Sage Mohai at this moment, if he hadn't refined the saint blood she left behind. Encountering an opponent who just happened to be stronger than him was naturally a good opportunity. A life-or-death battle wasn't all about the comparison of strength, but also one's performance on the battlefield. Therefore, even if Saint Sage Mohai was stronger than Saint Sage Mohai, he was stronger than Saint Sage Mohai. At this moment, Lu Yi was slightly stronger than him. As long as he found the opportunity, Lu Yi was confident that he could kill him here. As for whether he could find this opportunity or not, it would depend on his own ability to adapt and react on the spot. In contrast, Saint Sage Mohai's mood was extremely bad at the moment. The first human who had suddenly appeared had a powerful saint attribute, and was suppressing him was one thing, but the strength displayed by this human was also so terrifying. The other party's spirit energy fluctuations were clearly only at the level of a 5th-order cultivator, but the strength he displayed was far beyond that. How could a despicable human possess such strength that defied common sense? As a saint seed, Saint Sage Mohai had naturally heard some rumors about the Southern Territory. He knew that there was a human race holy land there with countless masters, but because it was too far away, Saint Sage Mohai had never interacted with the human race there. In his opinion, the human race was a lowly existence, nothing more than pigs and dogs raised by the blood race. It wasn't until the real fight at this moment that he realized he had underestimated the strength of the human race. This human who was called Senior Brother by Lan Chi Yu was definitely from the Southern Territory. Although Saint Sage Mohai didn't know why he had the characteristics of a saint seed, his existence was really incredible. At this point, whether it was him or Lu Yi, neither of them could win easily. This battle was destined to be a life-or-death situation. As they fought, Yang Kai had also used his divine sense to attack, hoping to find a breakthrough. In his opinion, with such a great gap in cultivation, even if Lu Yi possessed strength that surpassed his own cultivation, the strength of his divine sense might not be so great. There was nothing wrong with his strategy, but his several divine sense attacks were all in vain, unable to affect the enemy at all. On the contrary, Saint Sage Mohai's spiritual energy was consumed. Saint Sage Mohai knew that this human soul was just as powerful. This time, he had misunderstood Lu Yi. Lu Yi was able to remain unperturbed by his spiritual energy attack. Although his soul was not weak, Most of it was due to the effects of the soul-suppressing tower. This soul-suppressing pagoda had cost him a huge amount of battle merits to exchange for this soul-suppressing pagoda from the War Merit Pavilion. At the very least, he didn't have to worry about the soul-suppressing pagoda when fighting against a divine sea realm cultivator stronger than him. All he needed to do was to kill the enemy with all his strength. The blood river rumbled continuously as two figures entangled with each other, moving freely in the huge blood river. Lan Qiyu hid in the blood river and used the blood river's power to restrain Saint Sage Mo Hai. This situation was similar to when tigers and wolves were fighting, and a little rabbit was playing tricks on them. The effect was not obvious, but it was more or less useful. This annoyed Saint Sage Mo Hai, but at this moment, he couldn't spare a hand to deal with Lan Qiyu. The pressure from Lu Yi forced him to go all out. This was definitely the strongest opponent he had encountered in his life. Unless there was some deep enmity between Saint Seeds, they wouldn't easily erupt into conflict. Therefore, even though Saint Sage Mo Hai had lived for many years, he didn't have much experience fighting other Saint Seeds. This was the drawback of all the Saint Seeds in the blood refinement realm. They didn't have much experience in life and death battles, because they lacked the conditions to fight. Of course, the Saint Seeds in the southern border had grown in this aspect, because they often fought with the old seniors of the human race. However, Saint Sage Mo Hai didn't have this advantage. This made it difficult for him to turn this advantage into a victory, even though he was slightly stronger than Lu Yi. If it were the cultivators of the 9 regions, such a situation would never occur. For those powerful cultivators who often wandered on the edge of life and death, and had rich experience in fighting, any little advantage could be expanded like a rolling snowball, and eventually evolved into a killing force. Lu Yi was keenly aware of this, which gave him more confidence in his plan to kill the enemy. Now all he lacked was an opportunity. The opportunity had finally come. The long battle had made Saint Sage Mo Hai lose his patience and caution. When the two sides attacked each other, he took a risk. When Lu Ye's long saber slashed at him, he didn't choose to swing it away this time. Instead, he formed a claw with one hand and stabbed at Lu Ye's chest. On his 5 fingers, blood-red nails suddenly grew out like sharp thorns, wrapped in a cold and deathly aura. He had always felt that the long saber in Lu Ye's hand was a little strange. It came from his instinctive perception of danger. Therefore, even after such a long fierce battle, he didn't let the saber land a single slash on his body. However, the price of doing so was that his attacks were all neutralized by Lu Yi. If this battle continued, he didn't know when it would end. Saint Sage Mo Hai couldn't take it anymore, so he wanted to change it. He wanted to pay the price of being slashed by Lu Yi and pierce the human's heart. As long as he could succeed, no matter how strange the long saber was, it wouldn't matter. Even if he couldn't succeed, it shouldn't be a big deal if he just slashed once. Moreover, it wasn't as if he couldn't defend himself. That was what he thought, and that was what he did. As he stabbed with one hand like a claw, the blood-red light on his body quickly surged and turned into a solid barrier. Coincidentally, Lu Yi was doing the same thing. Spiritual power gathered on his chest. With a flash of spiritual light, defensive spiritual tattoos appeared in layers. The sharp nails pierced through the first layer of defense, followed by the second layer, the third layer. In the blink of an eye, the defensive spiritual tattoos activated by Lu Yi were all broken. This showed how terrifying this attack was. The Pan Mountain saber slashed down fiercely. The sharp blade cut through the defense on the surface of Saint Sage Mo Hai's body and mercilessly slashed his body. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.